Hello, I'm Kevin. Welcome to the Epitome of Salt. We have guests John, Nate, and Josh with us. Hello.
What up?
Yo, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
And we
Before
didn't say hi in the order that we were introduced. So I'm John,
I'm
Nate,
Josh.
Josh, and who could forget this lovable Kevin?
Hey, what's up? Okay, so you might be wondering who we are. We are a bunch of people who are all hit Mythic at some point in the last set, and so we're going to be reviewing some cards. John, what was your way of hitting Mythic last set?
I saw that everybody was going red blue, and then was really down bad on black green. So I ran the Mineshaft Spider, and he got me to Mythic.
Okay, and so he's a professional at playing decks that are unplayable. We have Josh. How about tell us your journey in Mythic?
I realized that it was an incredibly Prince format, so I just opened good uncommons and rares and then played them, and it worked.
All right, Josh, really skillful. Nate?
Skill. Good decks have good cards.
Yep.
Let's
I went
see.
with it with a bad deck that had good cards, because Simic was nearly unplayable, but when you just had good stuff, it worked.
5/1 drops does help.
We hit
Yes, it
Mythic
does.
running meme decks, Throne of the Grim Captain
Yeah,
stalks.
no, we were running. We had
Oh.
two Throne of Grim Captains, but no one liked that card except for us. And we were like, yeah, we'll play two of them. Anyway, so we definitely are the experts of this. LSV, we love you, but your takes are cold, dude. Without further ado, we're going to be jumping right into the show. We're going to be talking about Sub-Zero set overviews, then we're going to be talking about top uncommons, and then the best section is going to be the hot take section, where you get to see all the sound clips that are going to be played back later and making us look like our faces are painted. Moving right into it, we have the general analysis with everybody's favorite color. John, you were a big red enjoyer. Josh was a black, and I joined me in the black train. And then Nate was a solitary white enjoyer. Here's the graph of what everything looked like. Is there anything you guys notice in particular besides the fact that poor green, oh man.
Yeah,
Or
green.
green.
Yeah, I think it's because at least for me, looking at this, I was a little down on like graveyard centered like mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Now, having gone through all the cards, I am a little higher on it than I was at the beginning of the set because I was just like another graveyard mechanic.
Yeah.
Trash. I'm ready to like, nah, forget that. But the more I went through the cards, the more I like softened up on it. But still, I think that there are more synergistic cards in the other colors. So I feel like building a strong synergistic deck in the colors, like blue and red and blue white detectives, are gonna like yield better results.
Cool.
Yeah, I was thinking green this set. There's a lot of ramp in the commons that won't really get you anywhere because it seems like there's not a lot of great top end to go into, unlike in previous sets. And so it just felt like individually as a color, green was the worst. There might be some good synergies, but I also think that collect evidence is going to be a difficult mechanic to make work, and that's one of green black's things. And so I think that's going to be a tough color combo for sure.
Well, I've got some hot takes for you later, so you just put a pin in that one.
Yeah. What sticks
Okay.
out is
And
black. I think generally we as a group are highest on, and yeah, green was rough. Green just. It's not that all of the green cards were especially terrible. It's just that none of them were particularly good individually. Like, it didn't have its all-star that every other color had at least one of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
And
gnomes, dude.
And then I think black in particular, like I think its commons are like pretty like par for the course, or maybe even a little below average. But their uncommons and rares and mythics is just like, dang, they're spicy.
Okay, I'm excited too, and we're gonna dive into what we thought of the strongest stuff going right up. But first, a special thing from Nate is that we want to talk about the strongest color pairs that we by our ratings, and right at the top, no surprise, red and black, right there. So people favored red, people favored black. Red black's the strongest deck, and then not surprisingly, 4 of the 5 lowest rated decks have something in common. And it ain't.
Aw, man.
Oh
dear.
jeez.
Jeez. Oh man, yeah, that's sad.
That's really sad.
Oh boo. Okay, well, we're moving
I
on from
think you
that
probably
stuff.
will suffer from the fact that the green commons all seemed pretty weak on their own. That if you do a color pair, it might get carried by the other color, and actually the color pair ends up being really good. but I
Green
think
black
green
food
on
was
its own
real.
is just weak in dragging things down.
Yeah, like green black food was a real deck. Maybe that's what'll happen, or maybe it'll just be another set where green is by far the worst deck. Only time will tell. We had a one award I wanted to see from last time is who is the nicest and the meanest grader. So I took and I just summed everybody's like ratings of all the commons and uncommons to see who gave what. And this is the results. I turned out to be a very generous grader, and Nate and Josh are both extremely grumpy, with John somewhere in the middle.
That's a
Yeah.
big gap between you and John there.
I mean, okay,
And a big gap
do
between
you
Josh
notice that
and
the
John.
axes, it goes from 750 to 850, so we
Yeah.
all were still like within 100 of each other,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Even still.
Well, I think we learned something from from our last look at the cards, right? It shows us like, hey, maybe we're too high on these cards, or maybe we're getting too low. So I think we've adjusted. So the data's doing what
yeah,
or having the effects on us that it should.
I did. I was too low, and now I'm definitely up, for better or for worse, and probably for worse. But now we're gonna talk and dive into the part of the show everyone's probably watching for is what are the best commons. And we're gonna start with black, and no surprise, Murder of Call of Miner. The best common is murder. Right on theme.
Yeah.
You know what? Josh, actually, John, why don't you lead us off since you've done this
Okay,
before?
so a very classic, magic card. It's been around for ages. Murder, one colorless, black for an instant. Destroy target creature. You murdered him.
Is this card good?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hey, you see a problem? Kill the problem.
Hey,
Except
exactly.
for one rare card in this set, which this cannot deal with.
Oh no, I don't even want to know. All right, next cigar we have number 2, Slice from the Shadows. People are very impressed with fairy fencing without the good part. This spell cannot be countered, which is nice. Target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn. Nate, why is this card so good? Why do people like it?
It's flexible removal, and it deals with disguised creatures cheaply because you don't have to pay the ward in order to get around it.
Oh, right, that's the joke, right?
That's the whole joke. Is this spell can't be countered? It exists on 3 or 4 removal spells, which go up in value because they don't care about ward. It just literally doesn't matter. So that reminder text, this includes by the ward ability, is actually really important because this is 3 mana, kill anything that's disguised.
I'm going to forget that in paper every single time.
I know you are, until I yell at you and you remember.
I see. Okay, so then the third card we have is Extract a Confession. All right, Josh, it's your time.
We've seen in previous set that edicts like this usually
So
play
you
pretty
wanna
well.
you have to okay, so you want to read the card so people.
Oh, okay. So extract confession. It's 1 and a black mana, so 2 total sorcery. As initial cost, you can collect evidence 6. If you cast it without the evidence, each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you do collect the evidence, they have to sacrifice the creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. And so, yeah, we've seen from previous sets that edicts are pretty powerful, especially early game. And this one has some nice flexibility that if you are casting a later game where they might have a bigger board, you can perhaps collect the evidence and get their biggest thing off the board. So I think it has both good early game play for like getting their first creature out and has the flexibility to be played later game as well.
Okay, so I want to open up the floor for a quick chance. What do people think of the collect evidence mechanic? Is it bargain? Is it bargain or descend?
It's if you're saying if it's good or bad, bargain's good, descend is bad, then it's descend because I think it's going to be. I think it's actually even worse than descend because descend actually could work in some ways. I think this one's going to be really difficult because if you collect evidence, you have to exile from the graveyard, so it's a one-time graveyard interaction, and in a limited format, you're probably just not going to have enough cards in your graveyard to be consistently collecting evidence for a lot of different cards, and so you're going to have to debate, okay, should I collect evidence on this card or should I save these cards in my graveyard for a better collect evidence card I have in my deck that will come up later. I feel like it's going to be very limited resources available for collecting evidence.
Interesting.
I'm with Josh, but for a very different reason. I'm gonna lean more descend than I am bargain. I think bargain was really, really powerful, and it was so powerful because there was so much just random stuff flying around on the board. For me, the reason I think collect evidence is a mechanic I'm worried about is because the lack of self-mill support that exists, especially at common in this format, is the key to the descend deck was like things like Deathcap Marionette and Mineshaft Spider, like John mentioned before, is you had consistent self-mill effects that you could pick up at common and wheel consistently that would allow the deck to tick. But this doesn't have that. So even if you can collect evidence a few times, you can't feed the mechanic to be able to do it consistently. And not being able to consistently have access to the things that make your cards more powerful than they'd otherwise be is just really weak in a world of Modern Limited where, until proven otherwise, every format is fast.
No, you guys are wrong. This is bargain. It's going to be sweet. My takes are later. There's the uncommon support is there, and so you guys are going to see it. I'm ready. Johnny, you with me?
Okay, so we're gonna put it on a scale from bargain to descend. It's definitely leaning more towards descend,
Oh,
but
no.
I'll go more middling with.
Okay.
You know, I think you only really need like 2 to 3 good evidence cards to like make it kind of like okay, like I could realistically see myself getting to this need evidence 6 or evidence 4 to get like the payoff for this card, like realistically. And the cool thing about evidence is that it's not relegated to like a specific card type. The fact that it could just be, 6 of anything, right? So like murder, is going to get you halfway there, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, okay, I'll just exile 2 cards and like that's fine. But the weakness, I think, is the fact that there is just not much support to get cards into your graveyard. If there was like a Grizzly Salvage, something that said like mill 3 cards and put a creature to your hand, like that's what I kind of want to see in this set that this just doesn't have. So I think looking at that, I even raised some of the cards that did mill you to a bit higher because I was like, okay, maybe like now to just be like, okay, every evidence card is going to, be active because of these payoffs. But at the end of the day, I don't know if it's going to get there. Where you just have to now put an extra thing to get even more.
Oh, it's going to get there, and it's going to be sweet.
I do think you have an idea there, John, though, in the sense of maybe I'm worried about the collect evidence build arounds, but having 2 or 3 collect evidence cards in your deck might actually end up being really good because you have nothing else to do with the stuff in your graveyard in the late game, and it might just be an extra value engine as just a little add-on to otherwise playable decks.
Right.
That's interesting.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking it's going to be perhaps like the inverse of the ring temperature mechanic from Loader, which is that you only wanted to play that if you had so many of them in your deck. Whereas with collect evidence, it might be like you don't want to play more than maybe 3 or 4 of these cards because your deck can't support a bunch of collect evidence, but it can support these small number of good cards that get a lot of value from that collect evidence.
Right. It's good early. It's good if you top deck it late. It's like Delve, basically. You have like 2 or 3 treasure cruise in your deck because it's 1 mana draw 3. Okay.
And then I think Extract Confession is a perfect example of that card. You want it at that 2 mana. You don't need that. Evidence 6 at if you're turn 2 or 3 in the game, like that's kind of just pointless. But if you don't have like 6 mana in your grave by turn 6 or 7, it's like, well, what were you playing the entire time?
Yeah. What are you doing, bucko?
You're already winning on board.
You're either winning on board or you're
you died.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say I'm slightly worried about this with the mill synergies is that with Descend, lands would count for Descend, but with this, if you mill 2 lands, that's nothing for collect evidence, and it's just like, oh, feels bad. And it's just kind of luck there. Whereas
I'm never gonna mill
with Descend, like probably like 30 to 35 of the cards in your deck are permanents. So you're almost guaranteed to hit at least 1.
Interesting. Well, we got to keep moving, so we're gonna keep going. But looking out for that, and I am excited to see how that mechanic shakes out. We're going on to the strongest green common, which is Fanatical Strength. It's just staggering size.
Staggering.
We learned our lesson from the last set. Hey guys, is staggering size good?
So I took a look at all of the 17 lands tier list for like recent sets. For everything going back as far as Mom to Loader didn't have one of these, but also Titanic Growth in WoW. And it turns out that all of them play at about a C level. consistently, including in LCI where it was a little bit better than average and played it as the C+ level. So it turns out that if you're gonna run a combat trick, this is usually a good bet for your first like few days of the format of which combat trick should I run if I'm in this color.
Yeah, and that's what we as a group gave it. We gave it a C.
Yeah, I think this will run pretty well again, especially with the disguise mechanic. You could undisguise a creature and then give it +3/+3. Like you could get in for a lot of surprise damage that might really turn the game.
Yeah, and the next one we have is Nate.
Tunnel Tipster. It's a 1 and a green for a 1/1 mole scout, great creature type. At the beginning of your end step, if a face down creature ETB'd under your control this turn, put a 1/1 counter on him. Taps to add green mana. It is a mana dork that only adds green mana, but can grow if you're in the disguise deck on your end step.
Points for cuteness too. I like this guy. They keep making these cute little mana dorks, and I just can't help but take them, even though green is so bad. All right, and then the last one we have is Topiary Panther. What does this one do, John?
Topiary Panther is a 4 colorless double green plant cat with trample and basic land
6/5
cycling. For 6/5, yep. And it's only 1 colorless and 1 green to land cycle that chunky boy. He looks pretty good, you know. I mean, talk about getting your evidence collected. You just need 1 panther in the grave, you know. Cycle that turn 2, and you're like good to go for whatever evidence needs collecting. The only unfortunate thing is it's only 1 card, you know. So it's like you better use that wisely.
But this gets a lot of points for being essentially perfect fixing if you're willing to run one of any color that you need.
Well, it's not perfect fixing because you have to pay green.
You need green, that is.
Yeah.
But any other color that you need, you can get on a stick, which is really nice.
But you have to be in green, so
sure. But I think the secret 5-color deck that's not really all that secret is going to be base green and running all this color fixing and running lots of these so that it can play its powerful spells in every other color. Because there's so many really strong multicolored spells in this set.
Okay. Well, we'll look to see how this one shapes out. It is exciting. Skipping on down, I guess we can talk about the multicolor, but we'll do that at the end. Let's talk about the strongest red card. Galvanize. Josh?
I was surprised, but yeah, Galvanize is going to be good. It's 1 in a red for an instant, deals 3 damage to target creature, and if you draw 2 or more cards this turn, it deals 5 damage instead. I mean, burn spells are really good. We've seen in the last set that Abrade was great. Any of this like low cost instant speed burn damage is going to be great. I was just surprised because I thought it was going to be Shock, which is very similar, just 1 less damage, but 1 less mana. And I think both of them are going to play really well. We've seen them play well in previous sets. Always a good card.
The mean grade given to this card by our group was a B. The mean.
Yeah.
So we are very, for reference, the highest grade we gave the best green common was a C. So that tells you right there where we're at.
To be fair to Galvanize, Abrade was a solid B in LCI, and these spells tend to run at about a B level.
Right. Speaking of cards that seem to run hot, we got the next one, Shock. It's a classic. It's a single red to deal 2 damage to any target at any time you want. Boom. Simple. We gave this thing like a average grade of C+.
It goes face.
It's
not as...
It goes face is big.
It doesn't deal with as much stuff as Galvanize, which is why I think we all rated it a little bit higher, but it goes face, which is important.
It's 1 mana. What more do you want?
And yeah.
I think the 1 mana and 2 damage is also big with disguised creatures, because if you're paying 2 for ward, it's 3 mana to kill any disguised creature, which is pretty good.
It's 3 mana, because they have a word.
He said that.
Same thing with Slice from the Shadow. Is also 3 mana.
Right.
It's just, since it's so cheap, paying the ward on a 1 mana spell is not as difficult.
Not what you want to be doing, but it can happen if you need it.
In a pinch, it does it.
All right, John. Last red common.
All right, Person of Interest for a 3 colorless and 1 red for a 2/2 human rogue. And it says when Person of Interest enters the battlefield, suspect it. So suspect means It has menace and it can't block. And it also creates a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token.
You
This
guys
is pretty
listen to me.
sweet.
What were you gonna
Yeah.
say?
Oh, I was just saying this card's pretty sweet. Four mana for a 4/4 between two bodies, and one of them is a detective. I would not sleep on that. Creature type. Especially with all the uh, little things that white especially does with um, with detectives. I think this is gonna get in for a beating.
Yeah. It's a thing. It's the 4-drop thing that makes a thing. That's always the best common. So
Yeah, relevant
Yep.
creature type on the
Exactly.
thing that it makes. It has menace, so it's very
Yeah.
attacky, but it also has detective synergies for like that kind of Jeskai kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
It's just rock solid all around.
Yep, I'm excited. And then now we can move on to our second to last color, the blue with one cold case cracker. It is 3 in a blue for a 3/3 creature spirit detective with flying, and when it dies, you investigate. Oh my god, this thing has a booty for a flyer. Oh my lord.
3 toughness is really, really important, especially with all the little 2x flyers running around in the set. 3 toughness is
And
huge.
shock.
Yeah.
Dude, this thing is dummy thick.
And you
Plus,
get,
it has a bit of insurance that, like, while it's on the battlefield, you got a great flyer, and if it dies, well, at least you get a clue token. So
yeah, it replaces itself and makes an artifact, which are both relevant.
Yeah, not much more to say. It's solid.
It's a good card. Crime Stopper Sprite. John, what does it do?
So, Crime Stopper Sprite is a 2 colorless, 1 blue fairy detective, 2/2, with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, it taps target creature. However, if evidence 6 was paid, you get to put a stun counter on it. So, this is definitely one of those cards where you're just like, yeah, give me that evidence 6, tap that boy down, and swing 2 in the air.
Oh yeah, and then I'm gonna play my 3/3 and I'm gonna swing more in the air. I did.
But here's the thing: if you draw this guy in the late game and you have a 3/3 flying, you have collect evidence 6. Like, this is the common collect evidence card I want to be running, because if I draw it in the late game, oh, nice 3/3 flyer you have. Would be a shame if it had a stun counter on it.
Oh man, don't even say. I'm already tilted. All right, Josh, bring us home with this last one. Dramatic Accusation was our third blue common to look out for. What does it do?
Yeah, so Dramatic Accusation is a 3 mana aura, 2 and a blue. Enchant creature, when it enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature, and enchanted creature is not untapped during its untap step. And then also you can pay 2 blue mana to shuffle the enchanted creature into its owner's library. So that's a nice little bit of insurance if they're going to try and destroy this enchantment. We've seen in previous sets that this kind of enchantment-based removal where they just can't attack, like Petrify was very good. That these types of enchantment-based removals are generally really great, especially since it doesn't put it to the graveyard, so they can't use it for collect evidence.
That is nice, yeah.
The kicker with this card for me is, because the big problem with these kinds of cards is usually 2 things. 1, it's double blue, and this is single blue, which is really nice. And 2, it doesn't give you any opportunity to deal with triggered abilities or abilities that are just always present. And if you really don't like an ability, you can just shuffle it back into their deck. And so being able to get rid of abilities when you need to, or if they're destroying the enchantment, is super nice. And not having to be base blue, like this is splashable in a pinch, is super helpful.
And also, it, like against green, those green decks that are wanting to play green creatures, it keeps it on the battlefield or puts it into their library. So no collecting evidence on that, like fatty that got, basically is out of commission now.
Yeah.
This thing is mean. I like it. Those are the kind of cards I like to play. I get past 3 of these every time I draft paper with my friends the first week, this is a strong candidate for that. Nate?
Novice Inspector. For all you Thraben Inspector lovers out there, welcome to Novice Inspector. 1 white for a 1/2 human detective when an ETBs investigate. This is the 1 drop of the format that I want to play. Really, above
Mhm.
all the others, this is the one drop I want to be consistently playing because it makes me a clue token. It's a detective relevant creature type, replaces itself later in the game, artifact for relevant synergies, to sack for also relevant synergies. So much good stuff going on.
It's a one drop with a lot of text. We gave it a B minus mean, so we like this guy. This is a good boy right here.
I mean, it has a lot of text, but it doesn't have as much text as Miner's Guide.
That's not that's a high bar. That's like
That
if,
is a-
if it's saying it's worse than Magic Diamond, he's basically saying nothing about this card.
Like, this is what I want for my top of the set one drops.
Yeah, like I
Yep,
did not.
absolutely.
I think Magic Diamond actively hurt the set, but not getting bogged down by that. What is makeshift binding do, John?
All right, so we got a 2 colorless, 1 white enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield, and you gain 2 life. So just an upgrade on like that typical exile target creature enchantment.
Dude, the 2 life is just like. Mwah.
It's
Yeah,
prayer
it's just
binding
like-
without flash, but 1 mana cheaper, and I am all for it.
First you get the strawberries, and then the 2 life come. Here's the green.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right, nothing more to say about that one's. That one's pretty obvious. I mean, it's so nice. Josh, bring us home. Last white card.
So the last white card we have is Inside Source. Inside Source is a 3-mana creature, human citizen, 2 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. Itself is a 1/1. And then for 3 mana and tapping Inside Source, you can give a detective you control +2/+0 and vigilance until end of turn. Activate only as sorcery. Like a lot of good cards, it's a creature that makes another creature when it enters the battlefield, and that's nothing to be scoffed at.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it a million times. The thing makes a thing, and this one also for no reason at all has bonus stuff on it.
Yeah, the expensive ability is just a bonus. Like, yes, make me a relevant creature type token, be a 1/1 that just sits there, and if you have nothing better to do, well, now you do. Give your 2/2 +2/+0 and Vig if you want.
Mhm.
Yeah, kind of gross.
Yeah, so it's funny because when I first saw this card, I was like, "This is like trash. This is terrible. Like, why would I just give my 2/2 token a +2/+0 and vigilance? Who cares? It's gonna trade." And I was just like, and I had totally skipped that it's just like target detective.
Yep.
Mhm.
So it's just like any detective creature you have, whether it be in the air, but like that's also gonna get +2/+0 and vigilance, and it just like sits there. It's good that 2/2 could go and attack, and this kind of just sits there as like that anthem when you kind of need, or not anthem, but
Yeah.
buff.
I mean, I would play this card if it had no other text on it. Like in Loader, this card it had flying, but like it was like the
Yes.
strongest, like one of the strongest like commons. I would just play this, but yeah, the text just.
The
Mhm.
the text makes it more synergistic, which just makes it even better. And I think
And another thing in this set is that if it dies, you still have your 2/2 on the battlefield, but you have 3 mana in the graveyard for collect evidence. So
Boom.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that.
so. These 3 cards that you see, the reason I'm so high on white is I'm pretty sure I gave all of them a B minus. Is I'm really high on all of them, and white is just consistent. Of black and red and blue have other peaks that are higher than white for me, but white was just really solid throughout.
Yeah. Always is. And then we get to move on to the ones everyone's been waiting for. Are multicolor commons to look out for and force in your deck with no fixing. Gadget. That's what we're telling you to do. And if Gadget Technician is our
Multicolor
first one.
commons.
Oh my gosh. Mwah. Nate, I have to let you read this one.
Gadget Technician is 2 blue and a red for a Goblin Artificer that's a 3/2. It has Disguise for 2 hybrid blue or red mana, which means you can play it for 3 generic mana as a 2/2 War 2 and then turn it up at any time for 2 hybrid red or blue mana. And when it ETBs or is turn face up, you get a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. This is reverse Oltec Cloud Guard with
Yep.
more flexibility, and I love him.
Oh, this card is such a house, dude.
It's such a
Yeah.
house.
Mhm.
I'm so happy too because it's been a hot minute since Izzet was a real deck, and this is like I'm going to be an Izzet specifically
Blue
because
red
people
was like the best deck in the last format.
was it?
Yes,
I guess it
Yes.
was.
Yes,
That
it
was
was.
like
Lord of the Rings.
Spell Slinger.
You guys got me there. You got me. Okay, I'll stop. I'll stop talking. Someone else say something.
But the cool thing about this card is you don't even have to really be in Izzet. You be in
Yeah.
red.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
of that hybrid flip cost. which is
Dang,
super
yeah,
nice.
this thing is so house, dude.
I love this guy because he's splashable or playable in either blue or red. You will absolutely take this every day of the week. Put it in my deck right now.
Yeah.
Damn, this card is crazy. All right, that's damn.
And
You
that's
I'm
guys,
the theme, a
foaming
lot
in the
of
mouth
the-
for this guy. And honestly, like this card being at common is just one of the reasons why blue red is gonna be one of the stronger decks in the set.
Yep. This card is one of the reasons why, even though I rated white the most highly, I actually think red has the possibility to be the most powerful color. This card is a huge part why.
yeah. Wow, that is crazy. I didn't even think about that. Sanguine Savior, gonna be convinced. I'm gonna call this Sanguine Evangelist all the time. It's
know, right?
1 white black for a 2/1 Vampire Cleric with flying and lifelink, and you can morph it. And when you turn it up, you give something else lifelink. Woo! So when you're racing, because well, here's the thing we say: when when everything's suspected and you're racing, this is the boy that they're gonna be like, son of a. When you flip it up, like, are you kidding me?
Mhm.
Like that one extra turn so that you win the race instead of them with the lifelink, and then this thing's just poking it, being a little pain in the butt. Oh my gosh, hell yeah, give it to me.
It's flexible, it's synergistic with what Black-White is trying to do. It has flying, and it has lifelink, which is a huge keyword in a set like this where Menace can't block is running around constantly, and it gives something else lifelink. There's just so much to grab onto here, and I'm a huge fan.
You know, and I think these just having been right next to each other, I don't know. Coming into this, I'm kind of like a little low on the morphs, just because it just seems so slow. Like Cons of Tarkir was such a slow set, and then like Magic has sped up so much. But the cool thing about these is they're that reduced morph cost. I think all the best morphs are gonna have something of this reduced morph cost, where you're paying like that too. So on turn 4, you're double spelling. Because to take off turn 3 just seems like too much of a negative tempo play in current Magic.
I agree. You can't
Yeah.
you can't glide through 3 in the modern ecosystem. It's not gonna happen.
No.
That takes us to our last multicolored card. Had to end with a meme card. It's the Dog Walker, baby. Let's go.
In the dogs.
He's walking the dogs. What does this one do, John?
So Dog Walker is 1 red, 1 white, human citizen 3/1 with vigilance and disguise. And he says when Dog Walker is turned face up, create 2 tapped 1/1 white dog creature tokens. This one's again pretty good. You're coming in, making 2 more dues, right? The thing that I don't love as much as this card is it doesn't have evasion, and the 2 dogs entered tapped. So this one does feel a little weaker compared to the Izzet, but I'm not knocking it too much because turn 4, you're playing this a combat trick. On turn 4, you're very much set up to really take a hold of that race.
Yeah.
Again, going back to synergy, red-white wants to be attacking with 3 or more creatures. This gives you 3 bodies, very much reminding me a little bit of a less expensive Ponyback Brigade from Cons of Tarkir, which was 3 colors and more expensive, but this having the flexibility of disguise, being a cheaper version of that, having a great name, and giving you creatures that you can attack with in future turns makes it, I don't think it's as good as the other 2, but I do think it's going to be a really solid piece for those more aggressive leaning decks. Or you can just run this in a white deck or a red deck as a way to get 3 bodies to just float around.
I think that's really big. I mean, we've seen the theme with these common multicolor is that their disguise cost is hybrid, so you don't have to be in both the colors if you don't want to be, or if you're in one of those colors but just don't happen to have that mana available. That makes it really flexible to cast, which is nice. Plus, I think this will be really good with the suspect mechanic to have 2 blockers. I mean, they're 1/1s, but sometimes you just need numbers of blockers to meet the menace criteria.
Yeah, that's a good point. Those dogs look mean.
Yeah, they do.
All right, we're going to keep it rolling, right? I'm excited about these commons. It's looking like a high power set. Moving into the uncommons. We're going to start back at the top with I think we could just do the two on for each uncommon, so they're a
Yeah.
little more rare. We're gonna start with black with long goodbye. It is 1 in the black for an instant that can't be countered. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. What are we gonna say?
It doesn't hit any planeswalkers in this set because they both cost 4, but that's beside the point.
I like that.
That's beside the point.
Yep.
It's still really good.
It's good. Hey guys, you like things that are good? Because this is that. This is that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And like the other ones can't be countered, and it kills your disguised creatures because they have technically no mana value. So
It's the only 2 mana way to kill a morph, I think. It's the cheapest way, I think, in the set to kill a morph.
yep.
Yep, pretty good. Leering Onlooker. What does this one do, Josh?
Yeah, so Leering Onlooker is a vampire creature, 1 and a black. It's a 1/3 flyer, and you can also play 2 and 2 black to exile from your graveyard to create 2 tapped 1/1 black bat creature tokens with flying. I mean, this one is a lot of upside. It's a cheap flyer with a big booty, and then if it's in your graveyard and you're late game and you need extra creatures and have extra mana, you get 2 1/1 flyers, which is pretty damn good.
I do often find myself in the position where I am in the late game with much mana and needing creatures.
Yeah.
And they have flying.
And that's what I think makes this so
Fine.
powerful. Although you do have to be a little wary that they are tapped when they enter the battlefield. So if you need them right now, you should have left this thing on the battlefield if you had the opportunity to. But
Mhm.
it blocks all the 2 power flyers in this format, and there are a lot of them. It has 1 power, so it does trade. It does more than trade. It eats the black-white common, and it
Mhm.
allows you to have that extra value in the late game when you have nothing else to do. So, bunch of great
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah,
It can also be done at instant speed, so if you're in a kind of control deck
Yep.
that wants to leave up a lot of mana, this is something you can use that mana on if you're not going to use it on a counter spell or a removal or something like that.
very nice.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, next I have to hit you guys with a hard-hitting question. What does this card do, John?
Well, it's 1 green for a sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage to from its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control.
I'm probably gonna put this in my commander deck.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, seeing one of
Yeah.
these hit a planeswalker is super cool. You know, so I think this is definitely going to be in more than just limited. But as far as limited goes, you know, this is basically what green wants. You know, just that bite to take out
And
any little creature that's in the way. Again, I kind of wish, but maybe it's asking too much. That can't be countered. Text on it somewhere. But
Yeah.
man, for 1 mana, I think that's enough.
for for a 1 mana punch effect, especially,
Yeah.
usually these are 1 mana fight effects at uncommon. So not
Mhm.
only does it hit the 2 planeswalkers, Kaya and Jace from the bonus sheet in this set, it also punches, and so you don't have to worry about the 2 things trading, which is exactly what green wants. Just put it in any green.
Yeah,
deck.
if you have green mana deck, put the thing in, and your deck's gonna be better.
Mhm.
I'd run 7 of them. That'd be my removal suite. Green Belt Radical.
Greenbelt Radical, 3 and a green for a 4/4. It's just a vanilla 4/4 for 4. However, it has disguise for 5 green. And this is the real kicker, is this disguise ability.
Mhm.
When Greenbelt Radical is turned face up, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Creatures you control gain trample until end of turn. This is green's finisher. Of you just
Mhm.
this just sits there, or if you really need a 4/4 blocker, it can be a 4/4, but this mini overrun effect and having 1/1 counters that stick around is a way just to finish people off, which green desperately needs in this set.
Mhm. Yeah, I think this is going to be great. I think early in the set, you're just going to kill people with this because they're not going to expect it, and you're going to have a surprise whole bunch of damage coming at their face. And later in the set, it's going to have to make really fast aggro decks play around it, and so it might slow up enough time to give green the time it needs to build a board state.
Yeah, they're gonna play around it and then they're gonna die with it because it's just so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this really benefits from those cards that like flip it up, like without you having
yeah.
to activate the disguise
Yep.
cost. So you
That's
know,
like
I
a
know
yeah.
there's
This is
couple
a
of
big payoff.
red instance. Yeah.
There
So you
aren't.
know you're.
Sorry, John. Go ahead.
No, that's basically it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
There aren't many reasons why I want to run cards that you pay mana to flip something up early, but this is one of them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be very upset when someone flips this up and kills me in the pre-release.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes. It do be like that sometimes. Moving on to red, we are going to John.
Ooh. Incinerator of the Guilty.
Oh no,
I'm
it's
just kidding.
towards the.
No, I know. He's just crazy. He
It's like that
forced
would be
me to.
very strong and uncommon. That would be quite the uncommon.
Oh,
Strongest
Jesus.
uncommon ever printed. But no, we have another great uncommon here with Torch the Witness. X and red for sorcery. Torch the Witness deals twice X damage to target creature. If excess damage was dealt to a creature this way, investigate. Holy house. This is just like, you remember when we used to bargain for things like this? And then it didn't even replace itself? This right here.
The power
is a
creep
house.
from 6 months ago is so real.
Dude,
Yeah.
what the heck is this? I did not realize that it also investigated. I should give this thing an A.
Yeah.
What was I doing?
Mhm.
You know, our mean grade on this was like a C, or like a C plus, I think.
Really?
C plus was our mean grade.
Dang.
Wow.
I'm gonna go change my.
No. You can change it, but
That's
the data it's
surprising.
it's still gonna be in the hot takes if someone gave it. Yeah, wow, we messed up. We're okay. This thing is like a
No,
minimum.
I put it. I think I put it as a B minus.
Yeah, I think I gave it
I
a
gave it a
round of
B
B
minus.
minus too.
Okay, well then I'm stupid and I messed up something. Anyway, moving on from my stupidity, we're going on to the next red thing, which is harried drone smith. It is Josh.
This is a creature human artificer for 3 and a red. You get a 2/3, but the big part is its ability, which is at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 colorless stopped or artifact creature token with flying. It gains haste on a turn and sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. I mean, this is great. It's repeatably getting a flyer every single turn. Plus, you have to sacrifice at the end step, and there's a lot of red sacrifice artifact synergies. Or you can sacrifice it early to get some value out of it if you have some of those cards in your deck as well. But just getting a 1/1 flyer every turn is pretty nice.
Yeah, notably fixed from that stupid loader card that made the trebuchet that like made you sack it at the end of combat.
Mhm.
Sacking on end step is,
Oh yeah, that was sad.
it's really nice. And this just sits there and makes little flyers and annoys your opponent.
Mhm.
And there's so many artifact sack synergies in blue and red in this format that is what really tips it to be up a lot in my estimation, at least. Of synergistically, just is so nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, the synergy with this card is like there's a lot of stuff that wants you to specifically sack those artifacts, and the fact that it just sits there to be sacked by another card that wants you to, it's awesome.
Amazing.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Nothing to complain about except I don't want to block with it. It's so good.
True.
Exit Specialist as our highest blue uncommon. Wow. It is 1 and a blue for a 2/1 human detective. Exit Specialist can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. It has disguise, so you can flip it up for 1 and a blue. And when it is turn faced up, return target creature to its owner's hand. Wow.
Did you not read this card the first time?
This is
This is
Feather
a
Haven.
house. This is a house.
Oh my goodness, this card is going to be painful for me.
This is up there in terms of like total commons and uncommons power level. This is really high power level. Can't be blocked. Bounce. Flexibility. It's cheap. I love this guy. He's a friggin' house.
Wow.
Yeah, you if you manage to just like increase its defense by like 2, then you're just it's basically like unstoppable on the board. So
Mhm.
it's just like
Damn, someone's gonna play I'm gonna use the fight spell, that green fight spell one of these days, and they're gonna flip this thing up, and I'm going to throw
true.
my keyboard out of my window.
Yep.
And one thing to note that I had to look up to the set to make sure is that this undisguising a creature cannot be responded to. So
Correct.
that makes it a very, difficult thing to deal with because you just can't respond to it. So it's very hard to play around.
Well, yeah, the way it works is it flips, and then
Mhm.
the effect of it flipping goes on the stack, and then you can respond to that.
Yep.
But
Yes,
it just you're I'm gonna flip it over. They don't get say in response to you trying to flip. It's like no, it's
No.
flipped over now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It works just like Morph for you Kanza tier players out there. Same way. Unflipped.
The real way to counter long goodbye.
Yeah, this is like this is some blue cringe right here. This is good. All right, moving on. We got surveillance. Surveillance monitor. What does this one do, Nate?
3 and a blue for a creature, Vidalcan Detective. It's a 3/3. When it ETBs, you may collect evidence 4. When you do collect evidence, you make a 1/1 Thopter with flying. Really, this thing is either you are collecting evidence and this thing is fantastic, or you're not collecting evidence and this thing is terrible. It is a hill giant if you don't collect evidence, but if you do, and I think this is in a blue deck that just has a couple collect evidence creatures, this thing becomes really high power level.
Yeah, I'm very interested in collecting evidence with this card. Thopters are so good, and if it ever makes you 1 Thopter, it's like a bomb. And if you get 2, just forget about it. Like, so good.
Oh my god, I didn't even
'Cause it's
read that
whenever.
correctly.
Whenever,
It's whenever you could.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. No,
Yeah.
this
Oh
thing
my
is
god.
Meh,
This thing is
whenever.
like, woo! It's let him cook, dude. Just let him cook. You guys don't like collecting evidence?
Yeah.
Let me cook.
Uh,
He's
cook-
a detective.
I'm
Like,
gonna
if
cook
I
up this
wasn't good
collect.
enough already.
Dude, I got the evidence on the pan. It's sizzling right now. I'm ready, dude.
Yeah.
this
I was just like
synergy,
so
man.
bewildered when you were like, and if he creates 2, I was like, what if he gets bounced? But it's no, whenever you collect.
No,
evidence.
whenever.
So
Whenever you need him,
Yeah.
there he is,
Yeah.
dude.
So you have detective synergies, and there aren't many cards, like single cards, that would make me even consider being collect evidence unless I got a bunch of them. But if it's gonna be 1 card, a common or uncommon, it's this guy.
I would put this in my deck as my only collect evidence card, and
I
then
would
just
too.
always collect evidence when I play him.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
But if you want to be a collect evidence deck, like this is the kind of enabler you want to have for your collect
No,
evidence.
this guy is. Look at that nose, dude. He doesn't mess around.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like we'll see a wide variety of play because if you can't collect evidence on it and you have no other collect evidence in your deck, it's very bad. But if you have like a bunch of cheap collect evidence in your deck, like this can get out of hand really quickly. So it will definitely run the ability of being played, but when it's good, it's great.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if he ever dies and you have another one, then he can collect evidence on
You
his
two
own.
will have to deal with the first surveillance monitor, but what are you gonna do about the second one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm not passing that. Not on my watch. Okay, it's I'm sorry. These funds are getting out of control. It's 1 and a white for an instant. Exile target attaching creature. Is this card good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's 2 mana to exile a creature. I mean it has to be attacking, but like in a defensive deck, this is very cheap for a very good effect.
We gave this on average a C+ rating. We were right in between C and C+.
Yeah.
I think that's about right.
It's a step
I
down
think the
from
exile's
our
gonna be
blue
pretty
cards.
big.
Wow, we were kind of
I
low
mean,
on
the
the white
exile would be big
uncommons.
for countering like collect evidence and things like that. That's gonna be nice. And I mean it has no restrictions on like the power of the creature, so like the biggest thing can get hit by this.
This is better kill shot,
This should not. Do not
Concentrate.
put this in your aggro decks.
but do not put this in
Yeah.
your aggro deck.
It's
That's
very
what
much
kind of
like
had me
a
low on
Talon's
this card a
Lightblades.
little bit. It's like a lot of what white seems like it wants to do is be very aggressive, no matter like what color pair it's in. So I'm just like, I don't love it, but I do like it because that's still really efficient.
No, I'm putting this on the cards of the list to watch. That one, the 110 for 3 mana would like to have a word with you. Anyway, case the second white uncommon case of the Gateway Express. Nate, I'm gonna let you read all this.
Okay, Case of the Gateway Express, 1 and a white for an enchantment case. So case is a new permanent type. Effectively, the way that cases work is they give you some effect or do something when they enter the battlefield, and then at the beginning of your end step, it does this check. And if you've met the check, then it becomes solved, and you get access to the bottom ability. So the way this works is when you play it, it reads, when this case ETBs, choose target creature you don't control. Each creature you control deals 1 damage to that creature. And you get that for sure. And then at the beginning of your end step, it checks if 3 or more creatures attacked this turn. And once that check has resolved and is successful, it's now solved. And now creatures you control permanently get +1/+0 so long as this is on the battlefield. I didn't realize that it didn't have to be 3 or more creatures attacking on your side of the battlefield. I will say this removal is weakened by the fact that you have to have a
It says on
number-
your end stuff.
Yes.
So you do have to attack with 3 or more of your creatures, and you need a board presence for this to be good, which is why I think I'm probably one of the lower grades on this. I still think this is solid, but I think it is significantly hurt by the fact if you don't have a board presence, this does nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we
I
gave
think
it
most
about
times this will run as about 2 or 3 damage, but we were saying that we love shock and galvanize, so if you can make it shock or galvanize, it's just upside on the bottom of the case. So
Well, I like shock or galvanize because I get to choose where it goes.
And because it works all the time.
yeah,
Yeah, the white
it
uncommon.
definitely has a very low floor, so that's gonna be
Yeah,
tough.
I was surprised that this was the top uncommon, but white's uncommons at the end of the day
Pretty rough.
aren't all that
Yeah.
alluring.
White's commons put in a lot of work. The uncommons, I didn't even rate them very highly.
Interesting to know going in, like, okay, like, make sure the commons are flowing, because you don't really, the uncommons, like, they're alright,
Eh,
but...
they're okay.
And then, of course, we gotta get the highest grade on our sheet so far, I believe. Yes, it is. Sitting in at a whopping, like, I think average of, like, B to B+. Oh my god, it's Lightning Helix! Oh my... oh my god! It's Lightning Helix. It's red
Lightning
and white.
Helix. Yeah.
For an instant, it
Yeah.
deals 3 and you gain 3 life. This thing. Oh my god! That's the meme. It's so good.
It's a meme for a reason.
Yeah.
It's a meme because it's good.
Yeah, I mean a
Well,
6-point life swing for 2 mana.
Don't mind if I do.
Also, this
And
goes
bad thing.
face, which I love.
oh my
I love
god.
turn
Great.
that goes face.
Yeah. No.
Although Kevin, actually, this is not our highest rated multicolor uncommon. There's one just
Yeah, you
slightly
missed
above
one.
it that you missed.
Oh, what did I miss? Oh my god, I did miss one. Thank you, Josh. Thank
Deadly
you, Josh.
Complication.
Deadly? I'll let you read it since you're so on the
Sure.
ball about this. Where the heck is it?
There it is.
There.
It's a 3 mana sorcery for 1, a red and a black. You can choose 1 or both. Destroy target creature and or +1/+1 on target suspected creature you control, and you may have it become no longer suspected. I think we all rated this pretty highly because it's 3 mana, destroy any creature, which is great. Plus, it's one of the few ways to remove suspicion from one of your creatures, which, since there's so few effects like this, I think it will be pretty sought after for the few cards that like you really need to remove suspicion. Plus, it's the +1/+1 counter, a nice little added bonus. But since that, rarity of that mechanic of removing suspicion, especially in these colors, I think this will be a pretty good card that at its floor, it destroys a creature, which is a very high floor.
Its floor is sorcery speed murder, but really, like, this is my highest rated common or uncommon in this set, just off the jump, because it says choose one or both. And red-black wants to be suspecting things, so you can put a 1/1 counter on any suspected creature you control, and destroy another target creature, and if you need the blocker, it becomes no longer suspected. It does everything, and you don't have to choose. You can just do both. And
Yep.
I gave this an A- for that reason, is because you can do both. And if murder is your floor, and that's already like B plus, and you tack on more to it, it's just at that point an A- for me.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to be in black and red. That I
Yeah.
think is the only
You do.
downside.
That
It
is
is
tougher.
hard to cast.
Dude.
I'm putting it in my green deck.
But like I'm putting it in every deck where there's a remote possibility of me playing it. Like I'm splashing this card.
I probably wouldn't splash it. Like, actually, I was a meme.
Yeah, because I don't know about how much you want to suspect. If like this goes literally in every black red deck.
Yeah, and Black Red's gonna. Well, we chose that as our strongest archetype. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think you're playing it, but I probably shouldn't splash it. Probably. Yeah, like no, someone's you're pick one pack winning this, and you're like, okay, sweet, like I got a good start.
Like
I think you could splash this if you're light on removal.
if you're letter
You're
removal,
definitely not gonna be like, oh dang, I'm splashing deadly.
yeah, you can splash it, and this is a kind of card I will pick one pack one consistently and be pretty happy about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I was like, okay, sweet, I'll just force the best deck and
Yeah.
end up with a good deck.
Pretty much.
And with that, we are done with the commons and uncommons, the best uncommons. What do you guys think? Just overall thoughts before we move on to the really fun section. Anything stood out to you?
Fun.
Any surprises?
Surprises?
I
Not
was
really.
surprised at how poor White was.
The uncommons.
The
specifically.
uncommons.
The,
for
the
White.
uncommons, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow. I was like shocked, but I think a lot of White's power is gonna come from its pair. You know, whether it's gonna be in red or black or blue. White seems to have found its like a very good support color.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's like one of some of the weaker uncommons, but some of the strongest commons. So we'll see.
And we should note that in terms of our multicolored commons as well, 2 mana disguise costs were really big, but also 2 of them were red and 2 of them were white.
And then I don't think we touched on it, or we didn't touch on it, but meddling youth's another fantastic red.
A plus flavor.
If it weren't for those meddling kids.
Love that.
Yeah, that is funny. That is that is funny. Like, whenever you attack 4 or 5. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah.
But
5 mana hurts a little bit, but it has haste. So that's great.
it's
And it
as
investigates.
It does.
sometimes.
It's gonna refill your hand.
Allegedly,
Hopefully.
it
I say. Eh.
All right, and then we get to move on to all these good cards. You know, sometimes you think, you know, oh, if I could just open cards like these, I'd make mythic. You know, if I could only open some rares. But you don't always open rares. Sometimes you open things with some good art. And there is a category that I've invented with the 3 cards with the goodest of art. And the first card we chose on this list had an average mean ranking among a group of a D-. And the card you should never put in your glass is actually
You don't have to go anywhere.
putting right before us. It's
It's right there.
magnifying glass.
Magnifying glass. Oh,
It is
God,
3
is this card
colorless
bad?
to tap to add a mana, or you can pay for to investigate. You guys hate this card. I remember
I
this like
hate
I
it.
gave this
Even
thing like a
fixed.
D+, I think.
It doesn't even fix for a 3 mana mana rock.
That's true. It doesn't.
And then you want to like.
Yep.
And then you spend a total of 7 mana to investigate. That's no.
And then you can spend 2 more mana, so a total of 9 to draw a card. That's value.
If
Or you could just play a better card.
if this was a land, it would be okay.
No.
Yeah.
No, here's
This
the
is
thing.
a 3
Here's
mana
the thing.
artifact
This
that
is-
does nothing.
I'll give you
It
guys a
doesn't
allude to my
fix.
hot take. There is a way to cheat this card into play.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, and
And-
I still don't think it's very good.
No,
Why are we playing
you know-
bad cards to make
Oh.
our decent cards better?
No,
Tutors for
you,
two
this
of
is
the
where
worst
you're
cards in
wrong.
the format.
It's look. It was too OP to have what are those stupid little partner Lutri guys called?
Companion.
Companions were OP. This is just the companion. No, you guys lack vision. Okay, moving on. The next goodest art was unfortunately. What did I do? Was Behind a Mask. Oh man.
This type of effect never plays well. It's a 1 mana instant. You can collect evidence 6. It does have the flexibility of if you don't collect evidence until end of turn, target artifact or creature becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 4/3. But if you do collect evidence, it turns it into a 1/1 instead. It's still bad. It is
Yeah.
better than the previous versions of this card,
It's true.
but
Yeah.
it's still bad.
I hated that one that
Yeah.
was like 2 mana, make it into a 1/1. And like this card is just worse.
Yeah.
Because it's 6 mana. 6 is a lot.
Eaten by piranhas.
Even
the
my
last
Piranhas was a fine removal spell, but this is like Relic's Roar or Awakened Slumber, or Disturbed Slumber. Like those effects never played well. Like those were
But-
2 mana. This is 1 mana, so it's 1 upside, but like they just don't play well in limited, or at least didn't in the last set and haven't before.
Well, I mean, Eaten by piranhas was alright.
Even my
And-
Piranhas was right. So if you can collect evidence, this is a card, but you're collecting evidence 6, so unless you're not playing a lot of collect evidence, like you're taking that away from other better cards that have better effects.
Although if this is your only collect evidence card, maybe it's not totally abhorrent.
That's the only case where I can see
Yeah.
this being not totally next to unplayable.
The
Is
tough thing is that
Like, if you're light on removal, I could see this card being played.
Sure.
I gave it a D+,
I think I gave it a D
because
minus.
I have some hopium on.
That's
I
fair,
like that.
yeah.
I like that. And then the last one is the chase is on. Target creature gets
Oh.
+3/+0, gains first strike until end of turn, and you investigate.
Why in the
if
nine
you-
hells is this
I mean,
three
look,
mana?
he's coming in
3
hot,
mana.
bro.
That's 2 mana cheaper. 2.
2 minutes.
Oh,
It just
jeez.
kept getting more expensive. It's not coming in hot. It's not Kindled Heroism. It's not Ancestors Aid. It's 3 mana and oof.
Someone's
it's-
gonna blow me out with this in pre-release, and I'm gonna get angry at them.
Yeah, I
Demon's
mean,
gonna
like,
blow
these
both of
effects
us
usually,
out with
like,
this, and I'm gonna be
I
sad.
probably rated it all right, but
The
I
average
mean,
grade
if we
given
were
this
rating
card was
by
D
amount
minus.
of times we will
or
probably
D.
see it played against us, I'm sure we're gonna see it a whole bunch of times because Dima loves these cards. But yeah, I mean, it's just so expensive for that effect.
I had 5 hopium cards, and these were the two of them.
All right, well, good. Then they'll
Then-
be revisiting these in your hot take section.
Then I'm the
Yeah.
counterbalance. I'm pretty sure I gave exactly 1 good art tier rating for commons, and it went to this card.
Oh
I
yeah.
think this is. I don't think it's gonna be like an F or a good art. I think it's going to be pretty bad, but like it does something when you play it. So like the bar is low, but it clears the lowest of bar.
I think it'll probably be a D minus, but I did think, like, if
Yeah.
any common deserved a good art rating, it's this.
Yeah. Well, no. It's magnifying glass. But then.
Oh,
we already
yeah,
went
yeah,
over that one.
Yeah, we have to talk about that.
Me and
guys.
my homies hate magnifying.
All my
glass.
homies hate magnifying glass. And yeah, with that, we have finished off our good art, and we're moving on to the section I am personally the most excited about. Actually, yeah, let's just go right for the hot take section, then we'll circle back to the highest variance. But I do want to cover the hot takes because I think the hot takes are just I for some reason just love a good hot take. So again, for everybody at home, the way this works is there's 4 reviewers. So what I did was for every person, so like say we did John, for example, because he's going to be first, I took everybody else's rating, so my rating, Josh's rating, and Nate's rating, I averaged them together, and then I saw how far our average was from what John gave a card. And so these hot takes are the cards where his rating was the farthest away from what we all thought that would be, and we did that for everybody. And so
Very cool.
coming in with a giant 5.3 category difference between what we thought and what John thought the card was going to be. We start off with Essence of Antiquity. All right, John.
All right,
Oh
John.
boy, you got some explaining to do. So hold on, before we dive in, what did you guys give everybody else? What did you give?
I gave this a B minus.
I gave this a C plus.
I think I
With some hopium, to be fair. I literally wrote
I
hopium.
gave this a C plus as well, and I will also say there was a little bit of hopium. John, what did you give this card?
I gave this card a D minus. I think this is like stone unplayable.
What? It's a 110.
What am I gonna do with that 110? It is literally gonna sit there and block 1 card.
Hell yeah, it is. And I'm going to have my counter spells, and I'm going to be collecting some evidence. I'm going to be creating some thought fears. I'm going to be countering some spells, dude.
John, what you
I-
lack is vision. It's a 3 mana 2/2 ward 2.
So here's the thing. On 3 mana, you're gonna play a 2/2. And then you're gonna hold this open all game to maybe give your creatures hexproof? Okay. I'll play creatures that are attacking you.
No,
And then
no.
you can
No.
Oh my god.
It's so
Eventually
much.
maybe flip this?
It's 11 stats.
It untaps all your creatures.
It's a combat
It's
trick.
a defensive ambush.
A bit of a combat trick there.
You know what? I actually didn't read that untap. I just saw
There it is.
And
I
this is
saw
hot
one
takes,
thread.
everybody. Where the hottest take is being literate.
Illiteracy.
I just stopped reading after Game of Hex.
And guys,
I
don't.
was
And it's
just
okay to
like,
laugh at John because he's gonna laugh just as hard at me when we see what garbage I freaking gave a B minus to. So.
But no, okay. If this is D minus, it's going to D.
Okay, fair enough.
I bring
Fair
it up
enough.
to D.
And I'm gonna actually spread these out a little bit, so we're not just bagging on one person super hard, and it's gonna be more fun that way. So next on the chopping block is Josh with case file editor. He gave auditor. Sorry, Josh. While you read the card, I'm gonna do some statistics on this because it's your card. It's your hot take, so
That's
you
true.
get to explain
So
it to
case
us.
file auditor, it's a human detective for 2 and a white. It's a 1/4 as its stats. When it enters the battlefield, and whenever you solve a case, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand, with the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast case spells.
And
So let's see here.
I gave this card a D. What did you give it,
I
Nate?
think I gave it like a DD plus.
John,
I gave it a solid D.
John,
I gave
and
it
Josh.
a B minus.
Oh my God!
Hey,
So
you got some
B
sway.
minus,
All right.
looking back at it, B
I'm
minus
going
is
to
probably
audit your
high.
case. We're gonna audit your case right now.
But I think so. What I noticed is that looking in some of at least the white uncommons is that I noticed that the cases were a bit stronger than some of the other things. And so I think if you're running, even like 3 or 4 cases, you're probably gonna hit something off this. And so you get card advantage off of it. So it's a 3-mana creature that gets you another card usually. Sometimes it will chain more cards. It's also a 1/4, so it can block a lot of things in this format. I think B minus, probably looking back at it, is maybe a little too high, but I think it's gonna play fairly well if you have a lot of cases. Yeah.
I just don't see a case where you're playing a lot of cases. Unless you're
Oh.
getting like a case of the Shattered Pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, like talking about the strength of the white uncommons did not lend well to your case.
No.
Yeah.
But you know what?
I'll
Hey,
probably bump this down, but I think like the fact that it gives you some card advantage could be pretty beneficial.
I guess I don't know. It's really not that abysmal as if you get a case. If you don't, you're just crying yourself to sleep because man.
Yeah. It's 6 cards though, so like
You'll probably.
I mean, we
yeah.
can probably run the
Okay.
stats on that to like see how many you'll have to run to make this worth it. But I think, running a couple plus like it has the fixing for cases. So like if you're 2 colors, but you don't have your second color yet, or if you're 3 colors, like it makes your cases something you can cast. So there's that as well.
I guess if
Well,
I
it
had
also
like,
gets enchantments too. So
It
like,
does
say
get
you
That's
get that
true. If you
exile
have like
card.
okay.
yeah, like if you have your enchantment based removal, like that's actually pretty strong. If you can find your removal from the top 6, like this can find
It
you
goes to
some
my blue light
just
control
pretty
deck.
big
Yeah.
cards.
It's gonna
Yeah,
draw
yeah,
my
yeah.
removal.
Because
Okay.
because both the common blue and white removal are enchantments.
Okay. You
Okay.
know
They're
what?
pretty good.
I
Both-
was
we rate
thinking
both
that this
those
is
pretty high.
embarrassing, but maybe this is embarrassing for us. This is always the fun thing because we're gonna revisit these and we're gonna see whose hot takes were right and whose were wrong.
I think
Yeah.
this might be embarrassing in both directions. Weirdly, I think
Yes,
we
I
might
don't
be
think
a
it's gonna
little.
be a D minus,
I
but I
think
think it's gonna be above a D plus.
yeah, I think Josh is a little high, but I also think we're a little low because we missed that interaction with the common removal in both blue and white.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, I'm still
I think
probably
this will
not
be-
ever gonna play a 1/4. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
well,
not
I mean,
gonna play
consider
three
in
mana
a
one
control deck, if you want to be blocking creatures with menace, having a lot of toughness is big because it means it can't get both of your
True.
blocking creatures. Like,
Dang.
you'll have to pick one of
Josh is making a case for the case
Unless
auditor
you
right
give
now.
them Death Touch.
Okay.
Well-
Moving on to my hot take, which I am certain is the hottest take. Actually, no, it's tied for with John for hottest. Actually, Nate had a hot take too. We're going to visit one undercover
them.
crocodile. What did you guys get this card?
I gave bad
I
screen
gave-
puff that's more flexible,
ahead.
like a D plus.
I gave this a D minus.
John?
Crocodile? I like the name Crocodile. Is he? Oh, he's a common. I thought he was uncommon.
Blue green
For some
multicolor common.
Okay, so I'll read the card. He's undercover
C-minus.
crocodile. He's a 4 green blue for a 5/5, and when it deals combat damage to a player, investigate, and you can morph him or you can disguise him. Sorry, and you can flip him up for 3 green blue like hybrid mana. I think this card is fine because a lot of times, especially if you went first, you're swinging with this and they can't block it. It's big enough that like basically if you went first and you played this thing, it's sweet curve out, and so it's a 5/5 disguise 1. If you're on the draw, like sure you might there's like a small chance that they play something big enough that you can't block it, But a 5/5 discover investigate is a card I would play, and if he's the biggest thing on the board, he's gonna keep getting in, and every single turn you're gonna hit them, and then you're gonna draw another card for 2 mana, and you're gonna do that over and over, and then like this thing it's like one of the highest value cards you can get, and it's a common. So that's where I'm at with this. What do you guys think?
I just don't see it.
Yeah.
It doesn't, because this thing needed Death Touch. If this thing had Death Touch, then I'd be a lot more open to it, but because it doesn't have a way to really incentivize not blocking it, have my 1/1 that's getting, that's sitting here doing nothing. Have my little tiny creature, I don't really care. Or oh, you have 5 open mana for Disguise, okay.
Yeah, you're skipping turn 3 because you're not gonna put this in danger. It's like, okay, now I'm gonna swing with it on turn 5. You don't know what it's gonna be.
I mean, you can block with it because you can just block with it and it's fine. It's still
then you just chump, and then you're just like, okay, and then it's like it's very awkward mana wise, because it's like I'm gonna go turn 4. I'm gonna play this on turn 3, 2/2. I'm not excited about that. Then turn 4, I'm gonna do something, and then turn 5, now I'm gonna attack with it. And it's just like, well, okay, that you just clear reading, you're transforming it into some big dude. Where of course I'm just gonna chump it. And it's like giving up your turn 3 to do that doesn't seem like a winning play.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't.
I think this one is just too expensive. If you're casting it for its regular mana value, it's 6. Otherwise, it's 3 and then 5 later, and then you have to pay 2 to crack the clue. It's just a lot of mana to get the value out of this. And I think the only way this is ever connecting is when you undisguise it, and that relies on them deciding not to block it as a morph creature, and so rather a disguised creature. And so I think it's just not gonna get there. Plus, 6 mana for a 5/5 with no evasion. It just doesn't seem like it's gonna make it there. I think I was probably a little too low with D-, but I think C- is probably the highest rating I can see it in advance of the set.
This is
I mean, it's playable.
I think it's playable too.
Yeah.
I think
It's
I'm
playable,
right on
so I underrated it. Yeah.
C- D+ range, right between where John and I had it. I think it'll be playable, but I don't think it's going to be super strong, and you never want to play more than one of these in a deck.
Where did you put that 3/2 Thopter, Kevin? Where is he? Right there?
I don't know. What's he called?
So you're saying this? Oh, Gadget Technician and Sanguine Savior. You're saying this guy is as good as both of them?
I have to admit, I probably might have overrated it slightly, but no, I am right. And you know what? This card is going to be a house, and he's going to take that Thopter, he's going to shove it up your ass. Okay.
Okay, I'll block with my 1/1.
Look at these hands, dude. You think this guy fucks around? Okay.
Because Kevin, all limited games will get to turn 3. They might not get to turn.
I gave a large bonus to any cards with these disguise because I think having blockers is so important. But I think you know what, I think you guys made some valid points, and the fact that I'm arguing for a blue-green card right off the bat does not, I would say, help my case.
Does not.
But now it's time to make fun of Nate instead, with his hot take, which is Undercity Eliminator. Nate, you can read the card?
Yeah, so my lesson in sometimes I can't read either. Undercity Eliminator, 3 black for a creature 3/3 Gorgon Assassin. When it ETBs, you may sacrifice an artifact or creature. When you do, exile target creature an opponent controls. This thing can sack itself. I gave this a D because I was like, why are you playing 5 mana for a 3/3 with Bone Shard stapled to it? That's just not good. But this thing can sack itself, so at worst, it is a 5 mana exile target creature an opponent controls, which is playable at minimum.
Mm-hmm. And then sometimes it's like a spider or whatever, and it just you sack
sometimes you're sacking a clue and exiling their best thing, which is pretty damn nice.
Yep.
Okay, so that was just reading. Okay.
That's my lesson in sometimes I can't read either. Usually reading's my job, and so that's on me. I can't read sometimes either.
Okay, good, because that card is.
To go over, I gave this a C+.
I gave it a B.
I gave it a B as well.
Yeah.
What would you give it now, Nate?
I think
thinking about it.
I think I'm probably with. I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
He's gonna say
of
right in
that.
the middle. He'd be like, I'd be like C plus B minus.
I
Well,
might lean
okay,
a little
well-
more towards Josh's side of like C plus, but
Yeah.
I think it's on that border where it could be B minus.
So the
Yeah, 'cause
real
I think
shift
it's-
on this is like it could, but you really ever sacrifice this. Like, does
Yeah.
does it being able to sacrifice itself really bring it up that much for you?
It does because of what it can do on an empty board, or it doesn't force you to sack. If you have one really big creature out or two really important creatures out, you don't have to sack them. You can sack this
Mhm.
blank 3/3 instead, which is significantly better in my mind because especially like when you're black or you're green or in that style of deck where you want this kind of removal, it's kind of like slower removal of you want to be playing big creatures and not having to sack those big creatures is really important.
Mhm.
Well, I'm just thinking in just generally in really any deck, there's gonna be like a lot of clue tokens line.
That's the other thing is I was like, oh, you can't sack clue tokens. Wrong. Reading. Reading.
Double reading.
Double.
It's
He-
bargain.
He just
It
saw,
is
oh, this
bargain.
is the crappy thing that's expensive and sacks. It sacks something and sucks. And you just stop reading.
Yep. Reading.
Fair enough,
Important.
fair enough.
It's less Abyssal Gorestalker, more Dust Rose Reliquary.
Yeah. Going circling back to John, we may have a suspicious detonation on our hands. This was what does this card do, John?
Suspicious Detonation is 4 colorless and 1 red, so 5 mana for a sorcery that deals 4 damage to target creature and can't be countered. And also, it costs 3 less if you sacrifice an artifact this turn.
So for the record, he was 4 grades different than us, which means what did we give this card?
I gave it like a CC plus.
Suspicious.
I gave it a D.
I gave it a C minus. John, what'd you give this card?
I gave it a B.
Okay.
Whoa.
I'm gonna fight for it here because
Okay.
Look,
Okay. Let him cook.
in the Is It deck, because this is just where this card belongs.
Sure.
They are just doing that anyways. There is so many thopters, clues, and just the cards in Is It itself are just sacrificing their artifacts on a whim. So the fact that this is 3 less, you're paying 2 mana to deal 4 damage, like a majority, I'm gonna say about half the time is great. And the times where you're paying 5, you're not gonna be happy about it. But it bumping up to that 4 damage, where like most of the creatures are 3 and even fewer at 4, is definitely gonna like save your butt.
Because you're not paying 3, you're paying 2. I'm with you, John. The reason I went down to CC plus is because it's only really belonging in the one deck. It's really good in that one deck, but outside of that one deck, this is 5 mana slow removal that you're not going to have access to enough artifact sack unless you're generating a lot of clue tokens for me to think this has the same power level. So in the Is It decks, I absolutely am with you. This is like a B level card, but because it doesn't belong in those other archetypes, I bumped it down to CC plus.
Yeah, and I'd bring it down to C plus for that. But like in the Is It decks, like once I already know Is It, I'm like taking every single one that I could take.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I think that it's definitely better than I originally thought. I think D is definitely too low on it. I think my reasoning on this was that there are just 2 better burn spells in red at common, that like this one is kind of like the third best one, and so how often are you going to be taking it? I guess just in that one archetype, which is why I think it will play now as well. Because like a lot of times what this probably looks like to me is unless you have artifacts that have some other way to sacrifice it, is that you're paying 2 to sacrifice a clue and then casting this, so you're really only getting a 1 mana discount because you're already paying 2 to sack that clue, since it's at sorcery speed.
But
And so
aren't you kind of happy with 4 mana, sack a clue, draw a card, can't be countered, 4 damage to target creature? Isn't that still pretty good?
I think it's still fairly good. So I do think it's better than a D. I think it's probably like a C, probably a C for me. I think it's just the fact that it's getting overshadowed by Galvanize and Shock. That like, I mean, like, you know, it can still be good, and all 3 cards can be good. I just think that it's probably the worst of the 3. That's why I was kind of downgrading
Yeah,
a little bit in my
and
head.
I concur
makes a
with
lot
that
of sense, yeah.
assessment. On average, I do think it is the worst of the 3 red common burn spells, but just because it's the worst of the 3 doesn't mean it's not still playable, especially if you're low on removal or in Is It.
Just for fun, if you did happen to have all 3 burn spells, you'd have a burn spell that did 2, 3, and 4. So I'm just
And
saying.
five.
And 5.
And 5.
Because
I'm
Galvanize
just,
is
Yeah,
3 and 5.
Galvanize does 5.
I'm just saying. I'm
And
just saying.
everything.
All right, moving on. It's time for Josh to explain himself. He is on the lookout for one Market Watch Phantom. What does this card do, Josh?
So Market Watch Phantom, I know. I think it's the reverse. Is I am not on the lookout for this one. My opponent is. This is a Spirit Detective, 1 and a white. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, Market Watch Phantom gains flying until end of turn. I gave this card a D.
I gave it a C.
I gave it a C+.
I'm really high on this card. I gave it like a B-.
Whoa.
It's
I
Okay.
think this is it's a bear. It's a 2 mana 2/2, and you're gonna be triggering the flying maybe a couple times. Like, it just seems like you're pretty unlikely to be triggering it. You can trigger an attack with it, but you're not going to get that trigger as a blocker, so you can't block flyers, because I don't really think there are any flash creatures, or at least not enough flash creatures. Are there any flash creatures
You
in the
can
set?
you can flip a morph.
Yep.
Flipomorph does not counter as enter the battlefield, though.
If it makes a token, yeah.
Yeah, so like if your Flipmorph makes a token, then you can trigger this in defense and probably also trade. Like, it just seems like it's very specific and it's hard to activate. That the vast majority of this time it's just going to be a 2/2 for 2 mana, and this set is full of a bunch of 2/2s for 3 mana that are disguises. So it's like, it just seems like it's not going to be getting there most of the time, is my anticipation.
So, okay, opposite side of the coin. Here's the argument. You are an attacky deck. You are playing a bunch of creatures with power that ETB with power 2 or less. Say you're playing the red common orangutan that is a 2/2 reach that you can sack an artifact to put +2/+2 counters on.
A disguise creature.
Or a disguised creature. There are so many creatures in this format that give this thing flying, and if you're attacking every turn, this is a 2 mana 2/2 flying, which is really powerful. It is limited by the fact that you do need to be an attacky deck, and you do need to be in the right setup, but in the right setup, this could be, in aggro decks, one of those grown check cards for the format, especially if you can give it Suspect. Give it Menace, can't block. You don't care about the defense. You just want to hit your opponent for 2 in the face every single turn, starting on turn 3.
Yeah. Like, blue-white is going to play 2/2 detectives.
So
Green-white
the
is
fact that
going
it's
to put a
detective
lot
is
of, like,
pretty good.
1/1s.
Black,
Red,
white,
white,
The
wants
fact that
lots
it's
of
love.
detective is
1/1s.
nice. I just think that, like, it's your white really isn't a color that's using suspect that often, so I think that's gonna kind of limit it. I think that these types of cards that like have certain things that will trigger it and then it's really great are generally play in the lower end of C or D tier. Like for example, this reminds me of like Merfolk Cave Diver, where like, oh, whenever a creature explores, it's unblockable. It's like in an explore deck, that's great. But like if you're not in that, like it is not good at all. Like it's barely playable. And so like I think that's kind of what it reminded me of, where it's like this thing that occasionally gets a buff, and its buff is flying. Like it occasionally gets evasion, like on a 2/2. Like I just think that most times it's not going to be flying, and you'll get it flying a couple times per game. I don't know. Like in an aggro deck, it could really work, I guess, but it's just like you have to get a lot of conditions right to run it. And I think there's just other 2 mana creatures that you don't have to jump through as many hoops for.
I think part of it for me is, first of all, it's a bear at worst, and a bear is already like a D. It's playable in a pinch. But the fact that
Which is what I gave it.
we've seen cards like this in previous formats, and they've really overperformed as almost a grown check card for the format. And that's giving it some points for me here, because there are so many creatures that give you little things. There's so many disguised creatures running around. There are so many, oh, I make a 1/1 Thopter running around, or there's so much of this stuff running around that it's going to have flying a lot, and it has detective synergies for that deck as well. which just tacks on further to it. That, yeah, maybe I'm a little overestimating it, but I don't think I'd go below C plus for this. It is a bear with a significant upside that I think you're going to be getting at least 2, 3, 4 times a game, and in an attacky deck, that's exactly what you want. You want to be trading up with this. Your opponent plays a 3-mana 2/2 flying, tap something on turn 3. This trades for it, and this is trading up in mana value, which is everything you could ask for from your 2-drop.
It'll be interesting.
Maybe
to
I'm a
see.
little low on a D, but I really think that this probably won't play very well. Like, I don't know, like it reminds me a bit of the white one from the last set, Thousand Moon's Crack Shot. Like, it's another white 2-mana 2/2. That one had a worse ability, so like probably running better than that. Or like my thinking, it's at best like a Shipwreck Sentry, where like something specific enters the battlefield and then it can do a thing. But Shipwreck Sentry was a 3/3, and so like,
Oh, there's a worse Shipwreck Sentry.
Oh, there is a worse
hate
Shipwreck
that
Don't
guy.
you worry.
I think he was
He's
the
out
only-
there.
We'll get to him.
Oh, please.
yeah. So I think you can, if you can consistently get it off an aggro deck, it's very clean, it can work, but I think that won't happen enough that I think its win rate as a card will be pretty low.
And that's where I think the contentiousness is how much do you think you're going to get the activation from this? Because from what it sounds like, Josh, you just don't think we're going to get this ability very much. And my opinion is the difference between this and Merfolk Cave Diver is just how often you're going to do the thing. You're just going to do the thing more on average, and any white deck is going to naturally do the thing more often, and that's going to make it better. And that's fair.
Mhm.
Both sides.
Yeah. I mean, it's a card, and we're gonna see how it plays. Moving on to the next card.
Hey, that's the fighting I like.
Yeah, but it was like,
Maybe Josh,
that-
really like, I'm on this D, I'm on this B.
No, that's good. That's the spice. I love this. This is the kind of fun that gets from these blind reviews. It's not like we're talking. It's like we just get to skip right to the cards, and it's like, I disagree with you. Let's have an argument. Or it's, I don't know how to read. And then, so for my card, I'm 4 different than the rest of everybody else. It's time for the one, the only, the Agency Outfitter. Let me walk you guys through this. It is a 4 blue Sphinx Detective with 4 attack and 3 toughness, and it has flying. And when it enters the battlefield, you must search your library, your graveyard, your hand for a card named Magnifying Glass and a card named or a card named Thinking Cap, and put them on the battlefield, and then you get to shuffle. Boom.
Oh,
This
no.
thing is a 6 mana 4/3 draw 2. Go fuck yourself. I win the game.
Draw some of the two worst cards in the
thing that you read
format.
about there was that you got to shuffle your.
No, flying was okay. We like flying.
This thing
Flying
is-
is the best part about this, and I guess maybe Detective.
This
This is
card
bad.
is a C+.
Oh,
I gave this a D
Oh
minus.
boy, I gave this like a D.
This card is
I
a
gave
C+.
it a D.
No, this card is sweet. You get to draw 2 cards that are good.
Draw the 2 worst cards in the format, probably. I guess Thinking Cap is
Kevin,
playable, but
you
Magnifying Glass
have
is the worst card in the format.
you have a thing that you always say. Good decks play good cards.
No,
Why
this
are
is
we
a good
playing?
card.
Why are we playing
You
bad
keep
cards to
bad
make
cards
our
to make it
supposed
better.
good card
You
better?
can spend like 6 mana for free and two things into play.
Do you
And what
even
happens if
want?
They
you
don't
draw
even
those 2
attach
things
to
before
it.
and they're stuck in
They
your
don't
hand and
even
you're
attach
sad?
it on
No, this thing, I'm going to be playing blue-white hyper control with my 1/10s and my counter spells and all my flyers, and I'm going to be sitting back, and then we're going to get in a top deck war, and you guys are going to be like, oh god, how we didn't draw gas, and I'm going to draw Agency Outfitter, and you guys are like, I'm dead. I can't beat this value and tempo of
And
this
then
Hey,
murder.
Kevin, what toughness is
And then
this?
Galvanize.
3.
I said this dies to Galvanize, a red common.
No, it doesn't.
New mana.
I have counterspell
No
up.
ward.
I am
You
riding
have
my
counterspell
horse
on top of the 6
into the
mana
late
expense
game,
list.
and this guy is my steed.
If
So what are you doing
If-
with the Magnifying Glass and the Thinking Cap? The Thinking Cap, I guess, sure, you can
If-
attach it to this thing for 1. It's a detective. That's all right. Your Magnifying Glass is really your endgame solution.
It's gonna be it's endless
And
value.
6 mana draw
I'm going
cards.
to run out every card in my library.
The hand that you keep that goes land, land, land. Agency outfitter, magnifying glass, thinking cap, land.
If you can attach thinking cap right away, this is a 7 mana 5/5 flying. Do you really want to play that?
Yes. And it's gonna be sweet. And you guys,
How did Council of Echoes play in last set? Because that's basically what this is, but this is worse.
It was a D minus.
no, this is way
Yeah,
better.
it was Council of Echoes was a D plus, and it could bounce something sometimes. This is the same thing with 1 less toughness and gets you the worst cards in the set. So
No, they're not the worst cards when you draw them for free, and you get to put them on the battlefield for free.
One
They're
of them
not
was
the worst
cards
literally
for your
a
agency
one-
outfitter.
All right,
Does
what
it-
you guys lack is vision. All right, moving on.
I can't wait for you to play this against me because I'll be so happy.
I can't wait to win
That
that
means I'm
game.
gonna see magnifying.
That
I
was
glass.
a
think
lack
this
first.
might be the. I need to quit Magic if I lose to this card.
This is the side.
You're gonna be
quest.
quitting Magic pretty
Fair.
soon, baby, because I'm he's coming. He's coming. All right, last one. Nate's taking last hot take. We got Case of the Trampled Garden. That's a green card, so I'm already ready to see what he says about this one.
Okay, 2 into green. When this case enters the battlefield, distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures you control. To solve this, creatures you control have total power 8 or greater. When it's solved, so after that check, you don't even get it on the turn that you solve it. Whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. It gains trample until end of turn. I think I gave this about what Jade Seedstones got in LCI, which is about a D+.
Jesus was a C minus in LCI.
I gave it a B minus.
I also gave it a B minus, but I'm thinking I might be a little high at a B minus. But you know what? I will
So,
let Nate.
yeah.
Yeah, I gave it a B, but yeah.
Okay.
I don't know
Okay,
why I gave it a B.
boys. Jade Seedstones was a 4 mana for 3 1/1 counters on as many creatures as you wanted, and it flipped into a 7/7. For me, this is less expensive, but worse Jade Seedstones because you only get 1 1/1 counter. If this put a 1/1 counter on all your attacking creatures, I'm game. But you get 1 1/1 counter on an attacking creature in trample, and you have to build a board in order for this to be good at all, and it's taking up your 3 mana slot when generally you want to be playing a creature. Part of why Jade Seedstones played well is because you were playing a lot of 1, 2, and 3 drops, and on 4 you could buff them all up. But do you really want to be doing this on turn 3?
No, you never really want to
No.
play this on
No,
turn 3.
I think B minus is way too high. I think I should.
No, you guys
revise my
are
rating
weak.
downward.
What you guys know? No. What you're not seeing here is you play this. You have you're curving out. You play a 2-drop, or let's say you can play a 1-drop maybe. Then you play this thing, and you eat every single morph, and then you put this in a deck with flyers, right? It's eventually TM. You are gonna flip this over for free, by the way. You pay 3. You flip this over, and you have 1 flyer. That flyer is going to be Megazoid, bro.
Eventually TM. Are you
Yeah, I
going to
think
be
that
dead
eventually TM
before
is the
eventually
tough
TM?
Thing.
No,
It's a very slow card.
it's slow, but it's a lot of
Right.
value. You're getting a
I say
lot.
when you flip it, its upside
And
is
this-
really good.
and this
Plus
is
one,
the-
plus one counter on everything and trample.
And-
Like
No,
It's
it's
a
not
really
a
good effect.
+1 counter on everything.
It's
I don't know,
only
it's
one
target attached
creature.
Oh wow.
I did
Okay,
think
never
it was
mind.
every
This is
creature
actually-
when I first
it-
rated this, so maybe I will say I was a
Yeah,
little high.
I thought it was
This is
every
really
attacking
bad.
creature.
Oh,
This
God,
is my
this is-
reading redemption card, you guys. My reading, it's been redeemed.
Call
This is
a
bad.
librarian, but not for me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess, like, usually if you're playing this, if you have 2 creatures to put 1/1 counters on, you're probably solving it, if not the same turn, the next turn. So, like,
Yeah.
if you play this kind of like as more top end, like, or like kind of an end game solution, like, it does actually like have some play. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think it probably like will play more to around Jade Seedstone's level,
I-
probably not lower.
I
so like
think,
probably
yeah.
C minus at the
I might
lowest
go
I'm
up
flipping,
to C
but-
minus with this discussion of I think it might play about the same level that Jade Seedstones does as more of a late game
Yeah.
card for when you have a board presence, but I'm never playing more than one of these happily.
Now here's what you guys
Yeah,
are missing.
I agree.
This
Yeah.
Jade Seedstones, you had to pay like a buttload of mana to flip it. This thing flips basically
true.
for free. Like you will at some point flip this. Guaranteed.
Yeah, but if you already have like 8 power on board, like
That feels so
it
winnable.
almost
bit
feels like
more.
you're already winning.
Yeah.
at
Like
that point, so
no, like
this
let's
is
say you have a
unnecessary.
morph on board and like one other creature, and then you just flip it up and you get a say like for example a 5/5 that when it attacks and hits the deal combat damage to a player, you get a.
Why are we playing bad
Let's
cards
just say
to
we
make
did
our
that.
okay
You
cards
only
better?
needed a 3/3, which could have just been
But
the
it,
morph
but
to
it
put the
also
counters
is
on.
only at the beginning of your end step. It's these small little things that keep
Yeah.
like
You get
chipping away at
delayed
it.
by an entire
So it's like even when you
turn.
have that 8 power and you're like, hell yeah. Wait, no. Next turn.
Yeah, they just murder it.
Yeah,
Okay, fair enough. That does
I'm
that does
pretty low
suck.
on this,
That is a little
actually.
bit that does hurt my feelings, but I will say of the cases, this is probably one of the easiest ones to flip. And like that means a lot because like I do think you can reliably flip this and it's going to be good. And it's only 3 mana. It's not like it's a crazy amount of mana. And putting counters on like let's just say it turns into Morph Wars. You play a morph, they play a morph, you play a morph, or they play like a 2/2, then they play a morph, then you play this on your morph, you now have the biggest thing and you can block.
Yeah.
And that's like fine. And then late game you will like flip this.
I think
Yeah, I suppose.
I do think
You
this
can
is
push through with
playable.
an attack. It's playable.
I think
but
it's
definitely
playable.
not a B. I'm definitely
No.
out on B.
I give it a B minus. I'm actually gonna stick to my guns on this one. I think it's really solid. The fact that you can flip it for free, and this is probably one of the only cases that I read, and I was like, I could see myself realistically flipping this.
Well, I think there's
How about
it's actually
the Filch Falcon? That is a case.
Yeah.
That's a B case.
that
right
was
there.
my
That's a
case,
case,
too.
yes.
That's where it was at.
What was that card called? You just referenced
Case of the Filch Falcon?
Case of the Pilch.
just
Filch.
blue.
Filch.
1 mana blue. Uncommon.
Case of the
There
Okay, so
we
it's a
go.
1 mana blue uncommon. When it ETBs, you investigate, and then to solve it, you have 3 or more artifacts, and you can sack it for 2 and a blue. After it's solved, put 4 1/1 counters on a target non-creature artifact. Becomes a 0/0 bird with flying in addition to other types. So basically, you get a clue when it comes in. Eventually,
2 more
you will
clues.
get a 4/4 flyer for 3 mana.
I give it a C plus.
That's a good card.
Yeah. I was like on C plus B minus
The
border.
clue
I'm
won't
B
have
minus
summoning
on that.
sickness. Is this the secret zoetic glyph?
Yeah, that's
Oh.
the hidden zoetic glyph right
Except,
there.
except it's face up, so not as good.
And harder to make work because you need
Yeah.
3 or more artifacts for it to flip.
Yeah.
And
In
it
this
doesn't.
set, not too worried about that.
Yeah.
Which isn't too bad, but you can't do this likely on turn 3.
That's true.
Like
On your
Zoetic.
flying
Yeah, there
vigilant.
is actually a way to get it on turn. To get it on turn. You'd like turn 1 this, and then you turn 2. There's the.
What was that white common?
There's a
The
blue
satchel
red.
from
There's
the
a
last
blue
set.
red.
Oh, Tinker's
Artifact.
Yeah, you just play Tinker's Tote, right? And
That's
then
3
Yep.
mana.
The blue red one is 4 mana.
No. Gilded Drake or something like that. It's
Oh,
in it.
yes. The blue-red signpost uncommon.
Mhm.
Yeah, Gleaming Gear Drake. Oh, this guy's a friggin' house, dude.
this thing is a house.
I love this guy so much.
Yeah, blue red, dude. It's gonna be coming in hot. All right, I did want to before we go to the cards that we just want to talk about in general. There is one more section I wanted to look at real quick. It's called we're gonna call this, I was gonna call it contentious, but we're just gonna call it high variance. So variance is essentially just talking about how spread out your data is. So these are cards that we just all disagreed on. And I wanted to throw in anything that we had to. So obviously the first one was Undercover Crocodile. The second was Undercity Eliminator. We already know what happened with those. So one I wanted to talk about, Polygraph Orb.
Yeah. Polygraph Orb. 5 mana, 4 and a black for an artifact. When it ETBs, look at the top 4, put 2 in your hand, the rest in your graveyard, you lose 2 life. Pay 2, tap it, collect evidence 3. Each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card or sacrifice a creature.
Okay, so what did everybody give this card? I gave it a C.
That's Dirtle Orb right there.
I give this a C.
We're in black.
It's an uncommon.
I gave it a D.
I think I gave this a D minus.
Josh, your mic is muted.
Yeah.
Did I mute my accent?
The Polygraph Orb got him, boys.
A lie detector.
Okay.
No.
Speaking no lies here, Josh.
I can't. Yeah, we can't.
We can't hear you at all, Joe.
Oh,
No, I see.
Okay.
There we go.
What happened? What happened?
So I gave this a C plus, which technically means I have the highest rating on it somehow. I guess. Um, I think this will actually play pretty well because if there's a control deck uh, in this format, it's probably going to be blue-black clues. And if we think back to Wilds of Eldraine, Into the Fey Court was a 5 mana draw 3. This is a 5 mana draw 2, but you get to pick the 2 out of the top 4, so you can make sure you don't get lands.
I always hit 4 lands, but sure, for most people.
And so I think it's like definitely playable. That card like played really well. It did give you a 1/1 flyer that couldn't block other things without flying, but I think this one like will be playable. Maybe C plus is a little high, but I think it's definitely in the C range for the clues deck. The bottom part probably you're not activating that often, or at least that's kind of it's like flipping Tithing Blade. Like if you're activating this, that's probably not the best thing you can do. But in the late game, if everyone's hellbent and you have nothing to do and a lot of things in the graveyard, like it just kind of chips away 3 life because they're probably not going to be able to sacrifice board state or card advantage to this. Like I think the card draw thing though, it's card selection late in the game, which I think is worthwhile.
Would you guys ever play this in an aggro deck as like a finisher?
No,
Oh,
because
no.
you have to collect evidence
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah, but like if you're an aggro deck, you've been filling up the graveyard.
As an aggro deck, I'm hoping my opponent plays this.
Yes.
So
No, I'm
he
saying
plays
you're the
that
aggro
on
deck.
turn 5,
Like
takes
because like
2 extra damage, and then I kill him.
like I'm saying
if
like you,
my aggro opponent plays this, generally you're pretty happy because it gives you the reprieve you need to stabilize.
right, but like
Yeah.
let's say like you stabilize and then they give like 6 life left or something, 5 or 6 life, and they just like slam this thing, and then like
No.
they put 2 cards in their graveyard,
No.
and they're at 20, so they go down to 18, and they have like a bunch of little crappers sitting around, and then they just tap it, deal 3 to you, and they chump out. Then you swing, they go to 2, they do it again in your deck.
You have to collect evidence 3 though, which is not something you're
That's
do.
like, okay, so that's on turn like 6, 7, and 8 in your aggro deck.
Yeah, that is some hopium, and also you have better things to do in an aggro deck at turn 6, 7, and 8.
This is only, I think, in a control deck, so I think
You're
maybe-
starting to lose at turn 6, 7, and 8 in the aggro deck.
Okay,
Just
I'll
like-
give you. I do think there's a lot of value, but I wish if it just gained you 3 life instead of losing them 3 life.
that'd be nice.
No.
But
It's just too dirtily. At 5 mana, it's like, jeez.
yeah, I guess I can
I
see
might
that.
come up a little from like D- good art border to like D+, but I just think it's too slow.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
I'm on that D.
Okay, then that's good. We got that out of the way. Next is another one that I'm excited to talk about. We have Essence of Antiquity. No way we couldn't get this bad boy in here. I'm gonna read because this is my home
You know,
here.
round 2 of this, we talked about this with John.
Oh, that's right. Okay, never mind. Damn it. Okay. I just wanted to keep talking about this. So we have to. Next, we will talk about. This is actually a good one to talk about. Eliminate the impossible.
Ooh.
What does this one do, John?
Eliminate the impossible is 1 colorless, 1 blue for an instant. It investigates, first of all, and then creatures your opponents control get -2/-0 until the end of turn. If any of them are suspected, they are no longer suspected.
Where are we at?
So that I think does a lot for 2
Where are
mana.
you at on this card?
Let's see. I don't think I rated it too highly, but I think this is one that I'm looking for.
I gave this thing a D.
I gave it a C plus. That's a hopeful C plus.
I'm on C- for this thing.
Josh?
This is a uncommon, yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
blue
Yeah.
uncommon.
I gave this a D minus.
Wow, we got the whole spread. All right, make
Yeah.
your case. Make your case, John.
So the fact that it's all creatures, you
Mhm.
know, is really gonna like be a surprise attack. I think of a red, you know, because it's taking off the suspect. It does a lot of little things for 2 mana, and it replaces itself. So you're gonna get that investigate. That's a pretty good blowout right there. A -2/-, and their creatures are no longer gonna have menace. So that means you're gonna be able for ones in those Rakdos decks. So when I first read this card, I thought it was a creature. And I was like, it's trash. But I came back and read it, and I was like, I don't know. That actually has some staying power, even if it's like 2 morph creatures going head to head. This gets around that protection of the Ward 2 because it's just all your opponent's creatures.
Yep.
So you're not trading your morphs anymore, and you're investigating. There's a lot in there.
there's a lot in there that I'm really glad. Like I let you talk first because like, yeah, like I actually see like I see there's a lot there. The only thing I really dislike about this card is the same thing I dislike with all combat tricks that are supposed to be used on defense. Is that usually when you're doing this, you have maybe 2 mana up, and then they have all their mana up, and like sometimes you're just asking for it, dude. That's like the one thing I will say I don't like. Although I will say there's a lot of like just utility, just like okay, you get blown out, but then you don't really take that much damage. You just kind of get to
You
take.
can
the
also attack into them with this.
Sure, and
Because they're thinking they're going to trade correctly, but they're not because all their creatures got -2, -0.
Yeah.
I think that's really
definitely,
Yep.
definitely a card that's gonna blow people out of pre-release. Like that's gonna be like I'm gonna eat like their entire. And I did actually like the point you made about menace too. Like that, like actually like that you could because they could declare attackers. Then in response to declare attackers, you play this,
Remove menace.
remove the menace, then you can declare your blockers, which is actually really huge.
I'm with John. The only reason I'm on C- is because that's about as nice as I'll ever get to combat trick style effects of I want to play one of these in a lot of blue decks, but I don't want to play a ton of combat tricks in general, so I never really want to play multiples of the same like combat trick style effect.
Yeah, I'd probably put it to like realistically a C. I'd say that C plus is for that hopium, but yeah, I'd see this as like a C minus.
So I gave this a D minus because to me it read like a bad fog. Like, oh, your creature's getting -2, -0, so you're taking less damage, but really like a fog would no damage. And so it reminded me of Eerie Interference back in Wilds of Eldraine, which was a 3 mana, 2 and a white for prevent all damage, and that ended up that set as an F. And I thought at the beginning of the set, Eerie Interference was going to be great. Like, oh, this is a great trick. Like, it's so widespread. Like, it hits wide boards, but ended up playing as an F. And so that's why I thought this is a thing that doesn't even fully fog. It's just -2, -0. And if Eerie Interference didn't play that well, then I'm thinking this won't play as well. I will say, I think your arguments about the other things it does, that it investigates and it takes away suspicion off of your opponent's creatures. I think those extra things are something I didn't really rate very highly when originally reading this card. So maybe instead of a D minus, I would give it a D or a D plus. But I think it's just pretty well. I don't know. Like, I think it's gonna fizzle a lot more often than you think. It's no Cogwork Wrestler.
Oh, that's for sure. Yeah.
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 No,
Who is that little
the
guy?
Josh is bringing us back to reality when he's talking about Eerie Interference. That's what this card looks suspiciously close to, and that's not
Yes,
this.
very close to that.
It
I
leads-
really thought your interference was going to be great before the set, and it just really wasn't. And I think that's probably more likely where Eliminate the Impossible is going to end up.
Because, yeah, you're right, fog effects usually don't play well at all. But at least this has Investigate, and at least I think Eerie Interference prevented the damage that was dealt to you. This allows you to use tricks for attacks and blocks a lot more
That's
effectively
true.
and eat things where you couldn't with something like Eerie Interference.
That's true. No, actually, no. Your interference did prevent all damage that
You
would be
and
dealt to
creatures.
you and creatures you control. So actually, no. Even with that extra thing, your interference did not play that well.
I think this is something to look out for, though. Like, you see your a risky attack, and they have 2 mana open, which isn't a lot. It also costing 2.
That could be just holding up a clue, like a clue token or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very likely.
But even then, I don't know. I'm with Josh. It's you did. Yeah, there's something you have to prove it to me.
Yeah. I look forward to doing that with this.
Okay,
card. I think
good,
this
good.
one's
I'm
fun.
glad you're looking forward to it because I'm sure I'm going to be too busy with my 6 mana 4/3 flyers.
5/5 crocodile.
And
One that plays well early
and
in
my
the set, and
crocodiles,
then
I'm going to be too busy for that. Okay, we'll do. I think we can do like 1 or 2 more, then we can just talk about some cards we wanted to. Cornered Crook is the next on our list with a variance of 6. So like people were all over the place on this card. It is a 4 and a red for a 5/4. Vaishino Warrior.
Vashino.
Warrior. When Cornered Crook enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice an artifact. When you do, Cornered Crook deals 3 damage to any target. I gave
it a C plus.
I give this a C.
Cornered Crook. I gave this card a B.
Oof.
I gave this thing a D plus.
Wow.
Ooh.
So Kevin was the highest rater at a B, and Nate was the lowest at a D plus.
All right, I'm just gonna say it. It's it's a 5-4 deal 3 to anything on ETB.
If you have an artifact sacrifice.
You have an artifact sacrifice in my red deck. You will. It might end up being a magnifying glass, but I'm gonna have one.
You're gonna deal 3 with this, and then you're gonna deal another 4 with the
No,
with the
That would-
red cards.
I'm gonna deal
No,
7.
well,
No,
it's
like
for
I am
sure.
going to
Deal
top.
7,
I am going. This thing is just freaking removal FTK on a stick, and it's a big old FTK, dude.
Okay.
It also goes face.
It goes exactly. This thing is
Okay.
a house, bro.
Here's my thought process. This is a 5 mana spell. It's a 5 mana 5/4 with no abilities, no nothing, with a little bit of, if you have artifacts, it can deal 3 damage to any target. And I like that. In Izzet, I will happily play one of these. I do not want to play more than 2 of them ever. And if I am not Izzet and I don't have a lot of clues or artifacts running around, this is a 5 mana 5/4 with no text, and that is like a D minus. And I compromised to D plus as sort of the middle ground between the two because I like the ability in the right deck. The thing is, the right deck is 1, maybe 2 of the decks because red-green, not making a ton of artifacts. Red-black, not making that many artifacts either. Red-white has a bunch of clues running around. Izzet especially will want this as a 1 of, maybe 2 of if you have nothing else to play. But because it's so specific and because it requires something else to already be on your battlefields that you might want to sack for other stuff, this reads 5 mana 5/4. And do I really want to play ever more than 1 5 mana 5/4 in my deck? No. And if it's a 5 mana 5/4 with no text, it's like a D minus, and so I average out to a D plus, C minus.
Let's just like real quick. Let's just like really like I'm like seeing this card is either like in aggro, it's your finisher, it's your reach, or in control, like it's your reason for playing the deck. Like let me contextualize it this way. Let's say this card said like 5/4 bargain, tutor up a lightning bolt and cast it for without paying its mana cost.
That it's not that though, because that's like getting a card from your library,
Right.
which
This
is
is
significant.
this is better. You just get to play it.
I don't think that's better than lightning.
I guess if you'd rather have it in your hand, but
And are we really playing like a lot of those?
yes, I'm going to play him in aggro. I'll play him in control because it's
I think
it's a
you will play them, but you're not again like playing more than like 1, maybe 2.
That's really where like I can be convinced up to like C minus of like I can see consistently wanting to play one of these, but I really am not happily playing 2 or more.
fair enough. You guys have anything to add?
So is this just talking about cards?
I want to do one more card, but then but for a corner crook.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so then we'll move on to our last card we're gonna do before we just talk about random cards. This is our last card on the variance list. It is. I wanted to cover one of these specifically, so this is good that it was here. Float Sim and Jet Sim. Can somebody read this card?
Okay, Flotsam and Jetsam. There are 2 halves of this card. Flotsam, yeah, it's annoying to read. Flotsam is a 1 and hybrid blue or green for an instant. Mill 3 cards, investigate. Jetsam is 4 and 2 hybrid blue or black mana for a sorcery. Each opponent mills 3 cards, then you may cast a spell from each opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. The spell cast this way would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead.
I give this card a D plus.
I gave it a D. Oh, Josh is
Oh,
muted again.
Josh is muted again. Well, I gave this card a B minus. I'm really high on this.
Why?
I'll let you handle this one, John.
For 2 reasons. Firstly, there are very few self-mill enablers that I want to play in this format. And this is one of them because you have access to the backside. Because if you draw this in the early game and you are the collect evidence deck, you want this. You actively want this to feed your collect evidence and give you an artifact that you can sack later. If you draw this in the late game, it's each opponent mills 3 cards and you get to play the best spell in their graveyard for free, which will win you games by itself. It's because of its flexibility that I like this. Now, that being said, I think even just my own rating, the initial B- is a little high, but the flexibility of this being able to be a self-mill enabler, being able to give you an artifact to sack, being able to replace itself, or being a finisher in a control deck as a one-of is why I rate this card so highly.
Okay, so first off, like when it comes to flotsam, it's like, well, do you even really want to be playing that collect evidence deck with? Because you already said there's already so few like, you know, activators for that deck, and it's like, is that the only reason that you'd play it in that deck?
No, you
Like
play
that's
the
like the
backside
only deck
as a
you play it in,
finisher.
right?
Like any blue deck control deck can play this as a finisher as well.
But they could whiff too, especially if you're playing against like
Aggro.
an aggro deck or.
But you get any spell from their graveyard. It's not just amongst the milled cards. You get anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but their best thing could be like some crappy 3-drop. Or like
And you just spent 6 mana on that.
Yeah.
But you have flexibility on your side. If you don't want that, you don't have to use it as that.
So playing 2, you're gonna play 4 mana to draw a card.
Potentially.
Yeah,
I think the reason why these modal cards exist is because when you use them for collect evidence, you get the mana value of the total card. So this would be 8 for collect evidence. So the flotsam part, you basically cycle it in a way. You mill 3 cards and you investigate. And now you have something on turn 2, you have 8 mana worth of collect evidence in your graveyard. I think that's part of the reason why cards like these are important, because it allows you to get a lot of mana in your graveyard to turn on collect evidence. That being said, I don't think collect evidence will work very well, so like, you'll need these in that deck, but I think these are not great cards, and so if you need the worst card, like not the worst, but the less good cards in the set to make the mechanic work, it's probably an indication that that mechanic is not a winning mechanic.
Yeah. I think I gave this a lot of points initially because this is the self-mill I want to run in that deck, but there's so little other self-mill that I think the deck itself is dragging this down. Like individually, I think this card could work really well if that deck was more well supported, but I don't think it is, and I think that dragged it down. And so I think initially I was giving it points for that when really I should have been taking points away because the deck is so under-supported, even though this will be one of the cards that really you want if you're in that deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's kind of the thing is like, I feel the problem I see with cards like this is that it doesn't go both ways. Like, you can run the good collect evidence cards by themselves, and like when they work great, when they don't, it's fine. But if you're gonna go for this like archetype of like mine the collect evidence deck, all my cards do this. This is like one of the only decent enablers that you can get, and like if you don't get it, then the deck doesn't work. And so it's like I'm okay with like running a few of the decent collect evidence cards, but I don't want to like bank on the mechanic working, because I just the support, the enablers are not that. We don't have Deathcat Marionette or Mineshaft Spider anymore, so it's just like it's like it doesn't go both ways, and that's kind of my problem with this.
I do think if you want to be in that deck, this is one of those cards that I would look for going around fairly late that tells you that the deck is open, but it's not a deck that I want to be in unless you're getting stuff like this, and maybe not at all.
Right, but that's the thing, is it's like how many of these are you really going to get?
Yeah.
And that's like the problem.
That is the crux of the problem here, yes.
And I think a good transition into just talking about all the cards
Yeah.
is another one of those cards that would go into the collect evidence deck. Fester Leech. I want to know what you guys think about
that. I have. Okay, so actually, I was talking to Nate, and I told you guys no peeking, and I like was mostly good about that. But I must admit, I did peek on Fester Leech, but I did remain strong with my grade, and I will remain strong now. For better or for worse, I gave this card a B-.
Ooh.
Oh no.
I
I gave
gave-
this a C minus.
I gave it a C minus, but I went like good art.
Yeah,
I had given this card good art, and I slowly like built up, and I still was like, gosh dang, I don't know.
I'm on like D for this card, at least initially. It's just very ironic considering I was so high on the other self-mill enabler, but when it deals, if it had an ETB you mill 2 cards, it would be significantly better for that deck. But
If this was just Deathcap Marionette, it'd be better.
yeah.
No, no, I'm going to slam this thing on 1. I'm going to smack in for 2 for 1 damage. I'm going to mill my 2 most expensive 6 mana 4/3s that I have, and then I'm going to attack again, and they are going to chump block, and I'm going to buff it and be like, haha, this is pre-release, and I'm not letting you take back your block, and I'm going to buff it, and I'm going to eat their morph, and then I'm going to attack again. Oh, I mean...
Really gotta see.
Yeah.
See, and here's what I was thinking about this card. It's like thinking about the collect evidence deck. Like, one, it already doesn't have a lot of like things to support it, but also too, it's like how much, like all the things that really collect evidence, I only really care about doing that later in the game. So how much does this even matter? I'm thinking like maybe this goes in on and then you could kind of play a game where it's like, I'll take the trade if you played something on turn 2 and I'm coming into you with my 1/1, or if you don't decide to trade, then like either buff it or don't. But after that, it's just like I don't really see myself caring a lot for that early collect evidence. I don't think there's anything that I saw where it's just like, oh yeah, I want collect evidence by turn 3 or turn 4. It's just like I want it later in the game, like, and I'm just gonna naturally get there, just playing regular Magic cards and not needing to like rely on Fester Leech. Also connecting. Maybe if this was even on attack, he did that.
If it just like had that last clause of activate only once each turn, I would be right back, because if you could just activate this, if it was just like a late game, like you slam this thing and it's just like you're just bonking in there, dude. Oh man, I know, it's so close. It's just
if you want to trade this off on turn 3, it takes your turn 3 to do this because it costs 2 mana. I just never want to do that ever.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is you're playing a game of chicken where you're like, all right, I'm gonna attack, and then you're like, please don't block, and then they're like, okay, block, and you're like, no, now I have to pay the 2.
I either have to let my 1-drop get eaten, or pay the 2 mana and spend my entire turn.
And then it's like a 4-drop because you just spent 1+3 on this stupid thing.
And then he doesn't even collect evidence. Good.
No.
What a shame.
He doesn't even mill you.
He's 1 mana.
Yeah, it just said like on ETB, on death, and it's like they must have like been like playtesting it. They had like a different, and then like right before the set came up, they're like, oh no, this is way too good. And so they're like, screw it, we're just gonna just delete.
Nerf it out
What
of
what if he had like a menace?
Yeah, that would be significantly better.
Well,
I mean,
so you can suspect it, but then you're wasting a suspicion on a Fester Leech.
Why are we working so hard to make this wonderfully
bad card,
like wonderfully
playable?
Drawn, like beautiful piece?
It's not that bad. It is. The art is nice. I don't think it's quite
it's like
good
creepy, and it's like we've got the bird, and it's like, oh, and by the way, this thing is the thing that it's like the opposite of the hidden reach where it should have reach by the art, but then it doesn't have reach.
Yep. Which there are some definite hidden reach cards in this format.
But okay, that's my opinion on Fester Leech. I started at B-, and then even like before we did this, I wanted to change that grade, but I was like, no, it's gonna make the chart look different. I'm just gonna leave it. And then, is there anything else? Any other cards anybody wants to bring up into that uncommon?
The card that I want to talk about when I saw a little spoiler that I was higher than everyone else was Case of the Gorgon's Kiss.
Case of the Gorgon's.
Okay, Josh, you're gonna have some explaining to do on this one.
All right, Josh, read the case.
So this is Case of the Gorgon's Kiss. It's a 1 black mana enchantment. When this case enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target creature that was dealt damage this turn. To solve, 3 or more creatures were put into graveyards from anywhere this turn. Solve, this case is a 4/4 Gorgon with Death Touch and Lifelink. And I gave this a C+.
I gave it a D+.
I gave it a D.
I gave it a D.
So, yep, I'm much higher. And I think I'm probably taking a little hopium here, but I think this will actually work really well in the Rakdos deck, where you're having a lot of suspected creatures that can't block, so you're always going to be attacking with them. And so it doesn't arouse suspicion from your opponent if you're attacking with your suspected creatures that might have some like less than optimal blocks. But because they have suspect, they have menace, they have to be blocked by 2 creatures. So usually that means you can get one of your opponent's creatures with it, deal damage to another, your suspected thing dies, but you play this, you get that second creature, and all of that solves the Gorgon's case in 1 turn, and you get a 4/4 Death Touch lifelink. And so I think it's very hard to play outside of that deck, but I think in that deck, it actually will not, like, attacking with suspected creatures is what you do. So if you have disadvantageous blocks, it might not arouse suspicion that there's something like this waiting. And so it really hurts that it's not an instant speed, so you can't do it on your opponent's turn. But I think the upside, like the ceiling of this case, is really, really high. That you can 2 for 1 your opponent and get a 4/4 Death Touch lifelink, which is pretty good, all for 1 mana.
I'm with you on the upside. I think this card does have a significant upside, and the fact that it's only 1 mana, you just basically free mana, you just throw it out there whenever you have time.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the problem was I was like running scenarios in my head, right? Like kind of what you were doing, and like I was rational. I was like, okay, like I can attack with my menace creature, and it's like, how is that third creature dying? Is always what it happens for me, because it's like you basically have to.
If you have a menace creature and they block, and they're like, okay, I'll block with these 2 creatures.
Okay, so they block
and
your menace
creature. You
creature.
can't get both of them, but they can get one of them. So you get one of them and just deal 1 damage
right, so,
to the other creature.
So you attack,
and this kills that
and you have
creature.
enough to overkill their creature in your aggro deck.
You kill their worst creature and just deal 1 damage to the better creature.
Okay, I could see that maybe, but that's like okay, and so you have to have a menace creature that has more attack than their worst creature has health.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was running through my
I
head
think
too.
the floor is probably pretty low, I will admit, but I think when this works, this is like really swings a game.
Yeah, like definitely see what you're saying. Like the upside is there. Like let's say they have like a token, like a 5/5, and you attack with your 2/2 menace. You kill the token, deal 1, play this. Suddenly, like you have a 4/4 Death Touch lifelink, and you killed their 5/5 for 1 mana. Like you have done the thing. So actually, yeah. I don't know. There's like a huge thing, but like so basically, okay. The reason I messed up this card, I think a little bit, is I was assuming it was face up. You never play this until you know you're gonna flip it that turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this can also work like with discard and milling if you need it to, but like that's probably hopefully a fringe case. But yeah, you're probably playing this when you can guarantee flipping it. That's like if you don't flip it immediately, it does make it so they have to play around it the whole game. Where like, oh, like I can't block in these ways because that will have enough creatures dying, so this happens. That's hopefully not how you're playing it. I mean, if it is, it is, but like usually you're playing this where you can solve it the same turn.
Here's the thing for me. I'm with you on the upside. Upside I really like. But we've seen this kind of like 1 mana destroy up to 1 target creature that was dealt damage this turn and some high upside before. So for me, I went back to, I think it's Mirrodin's Insight, a card from Mom that was 1 black. It was an instant even, the same effect, but it drew you a card instead. And that card played at like a D level. And because the upside is really high, and when you get somebody, you get them good, and you get a ton of value from this. But the downside is you are spending either 1 mana to do nothing and spend a card in your deck, or you literally have a useless card in your deck that does nothing. And that downside is so bad that like in the dream scenario it's great, but in so many scenarios this is functionally useless, and I would rather have a 2 mana 2/2 slight upside or a 3 mana 3/3 than something like this in my deck for consistency reasons. There will be the occasional deck where I'm with you and this might be interesting, but I just don't think it's consistent enough for me to want to put it in a lot of limited decks.
Yeah.
I do agree this definitely is less consistent. And I think it does struggle because I think it really gets a lot from the suspect mechanic. Like if you can consistently suspect your creatures, this is gonna do really well, I think. But that's really only one of the color pairs of black. Like it's really only red black. Granted, I do think red black will be the strongest deck. So I think yeah, I agree. Like
Not 'cause
the
it's
floor of
running
this
this
card
card,
is
though.
really low. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
I know.
it just fits into like a niche of a niche. You know what I mean? Like you either get it to work or it's pretty dud, and it's just like Nate was saying. I'd rather just go for like that those cards that are more consistent, which I think there
Yeah.
are definitely plenty more of. I think this is definitely a cute thing to do. Like you got like you're
Yeah.
gonna feel really good
Mhm.
when you like 2-for-1 somebody with this, and
Yeah.
coming back like a 4/4 Death Touch Lifelink, like that is definitely like this is worth playing because of that.
Yeah.
Like its payoff is super. It's because that payoff is so
Mhm.
good is why this card would be good. But it's
Mhm.
just it's gonna take a lot of work.
Yeah.
I just
I do
noticed another
think that
problem with it too.
mhm.
Actually, is like I think we're all imagining like pretty recently this is gonna go in like the red black aggro deck, right? Like you know
Mhm.
you swing with your shitters, you do. Then you don't really care about a 4/4 Death Touch Lifelink in that deck.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I mean, not
I mean,
really.
four-
Another body.
Yes and no.
Yeah, swinging for 4 that you can't block, and now you're gonna win the race because it's gonna make an 8-point life swing.
Well, it's like
Mhm.
Yeah, it likes that.
I mean, I don't know. Like
I don't think any deck doesn't
if,
like that.
I think like I don't know. Like if you can flip this thing, it's really good. It's only 1 mana.
Yeah.
And,
I am potentially interested in this as a sideboard tech option, especially like in
Yeah.
LGS level, as a way to
Yeah.
really get somebody and get a ton of
Mhm.
value out of it. Because that's generally,
Yeah.
like John was saying, where I put these niche of niche cards is sideboard tech in some specific matchups in best of 3 sets, where this can
Mhm.
really pop off and you can naturally build those scenarios with that in mind. But in
Mhm.
the vast majority of situations, especially in best of 1 or on arena or whatever, like it's just not consistent enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's really just like if you could like if it also said like artifacts or creatures, like then it's like okay, you can always just like essentially like jump attack, ping it off a dude, and then sack a clue.
Oh, question.
to-
Now it says creature cards will put into the graveyard. Does this exclude
Oh, it does say
tokens?
cards.
It
Tokens
does
don't
say
count.
cards as well. Tokens do
Ugh.
not count. Yes.
That actually
I
makes it a
remember.
lot
I remember
worse
seeing
than
this and I was like, wait a minute, and then
I
I
just thought
forgot. But
creatures.
then I
it's
read this
creature
again.
cards.
Yep. That
Yeah,
hurt it
that
a
actually
lot
hurts it a lot.
in my evaluation too.
I think this will probably play really well in the first couple weeks of the set because it's gonna have a lot of upside, and then people may learn how to play around it. I'm curious if maybe people find other ways to trigger it, like with discard or with mill, if there are like kind of cute ways to trigger this, if it gets better in the late game. But I think as people learn how to play around this is gonna probably suffer. So I think my C plus probably will stand for the first couple weeks of the format, but then it
A
probably is gonna
pre-release D
slide.
plus, and then rest of the set,
Yeah.
17 lands like a D plus.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
probably
gonna
the
be that
case, yeah.
fog, that fog effect card. That's gonna be a pre-release like B for sure.
Mhm.
Exactly, yeah. Like, oh damn, you got me. Like,
They're gonna do the honest man's blocks. Then you're just gonna be like,
We definitely have, from doing this whole set review, we definitely have that like pre-release advantage of we know what's gonna get you to play around that a lot of people don't.
Yeah, for sure.
Nothing like winning in casual events to make me feel good about myself.
Definitely.
I mean, I'm going to pre-release this Friday, so.
Me
So,
too.
like,
so are we,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're gonna be going like this for sure.
I can't wait for my date with one of y'all in the finals.
Oh, I'm gonna open 6 lands like I always do.
Oh,
Six-
dude.
There's
Same.
plenty of
I
lands
opened
open in this set.
4 of my 7 last time. Every time.
Hey,
they-
same.
I've been
no,
there.
all 4 of us opened a rare land at our LCI pre-release as our
Yep.
thing. I was shocked by the luck of that.
I wasn't.
I really wasn't,
Clears
because I've done that
all
too.
4 of us.
I've opened 4 lands in a pre-release like that before too, and The
It
lands,
wasn't for Nate's. It was
No.
Nate, Kevin, Josh, and Colin. Like,
but it was the 4 of us all opening lands. Like, that's just kind of par for the course for
there were also
sometimes.
4 different lands,
They
and there's only
were.
5 of them. So that was
Yeah.
pretty. I don't know. Yeah.
All right, is that everything? Is there anything else we wanted to?
They also have a pet card they want to talk about.
I was looking for the one that was looking at the vase. What's that guy called? He's like, yes, I can confirm this is a vase.
Whoa, that's Private Eye.
Ah,
Yes.
yes.
It's a multicolor. It's the Seinfeld
Oh.
uncommon for the detectives.
He's
Yeah.
goaded.
Yep, that's my favorite flavor
Yep,
text.
it's a vase, all right.
It's a vase, all right. Favorite flavor text of the set.
Yep.
Oh, I love
That's
it.
us right now talking about these cards.
Never
I
mind.
will
He's
say the flavor of the set, very good.
Oh yeah.
like homunculus, detective, a lord. Like,
Oh, what's
great card to begin.
what's it called? Eavesdropping.
No.
The,
That's
the
a
elephant?
green
yeah, what's that guy called?
green uncommon. No, green common.
What's it called?
Locks it on eavesdropper.
EAB.
When he enters
I
the
like
battlefield,
this. I like this
investigate.
guy. This
Yeah.
guy's my
He's
favorite.
all-
Oh,
He's all
ears.
ears, dude.
This is your sneaky, looks like a hill giant on a surface, and that's terrible, but oh man, he's all ears, great flavor text, and this is
A plus
actually
flavor
pretty
text.
solid.
Another runner for highest delta on pre-release versus normal set, because people are just gonna block this. Be like, yeah, sure, I'll trade for your, you know, my 3/2 for your 3/3, and you're gonna be like, yeah. In response.
But
You
even
do miss out on the vigilance though.
You do miss out on the vigilance of using
I
the
don't.
trick.
I don't give a
though.
shit. If I'm gonna eat their 3/2, like on arena, sure, I'll miss out. I'll take the vigilance. But on in pre-release,
yeah,
we're going in, baby. It's like it's lost on eavesdropping.
Easily the 2 best flavor texts of the set. He's all ears, and yep, it's a vase, all right.
Oh yeah.
we'll get to my other
Yes,
flavor
Massacre
text,
Girl.
Massacre Girl in the rares, but
Yeah.
that's for another
Also
day.
A plus flavor text.
Oh yeah. A plus card, A plus server. Yeah, just busted. But
That's
yeah,
true.
that was it, guys. Thank you so much for doing this with me. This was an experimental like format for a set release. Like any overall thoughts on like how this went?
I had a lot of fun
It was pretty great.
doing
Yeah,
it this
this was
way.
fun.
This was a
Yeah.
lot more in. Yeah, I just felt more like naturally engaged because we could have more conversations about different cards, and I definitely
And
had
cards
to,
that we wanted to talk about.
yeah, a
Yeah,
lot more opinions that
exactly.
were swayed instead of us being like, oh look, it's a C. Wow.
It's just like it's a bear. Wow, it does the same thing as all the other ones. Okay. Yeah, well, I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. I was a little nervous about having 4, but I think the fact that we did get to have those conversations and like give people like the spotlight and like have those debates was really cool. So thank you
It
all
also
for
gives a
doing
lot
that.
more options for high variance, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. Anyway, that was the Epitome of Salt Murders at Karlov Manor set review.
Commons and uncommons.
Commons and uncommons. It's everybody. Check us out on for more. We're gonna do archetype skeletons and some rares to look out for in the YouTube shorts. With that, this is the Epitome of Salt signing out.
Peace.
Peace out.
Peace.
I'm all ears.